Chapter 763. For the next few days Tang Tian met with schools of strange fishes, and after killing them he killed all of them. The fish bones he had collected had already piled up into a small hill, and he had no choice but to tear his clothes into strips and use them to form fish bones. He did not know what the opportunity was and did not care about it and continued to swim forward. He just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Everyone was fighting, but he was trapped in this strange place. The sapphire blue sea surface was calm without a single ripple, like a boundless mirror, extending far into the distance. The sky hung low as though it was within reach. The white clouds were like pieces of cotton candy quietly floating there. Tang Tian laughed. He dragged the large pile of fish bones and continued to move forward. The intense battle had caused him to struggle out of his daze. He did not know what was ahead of him, nor what the future held. But it did not matter, all of the enemies and obstacles he would personally destroy them. The Ocean of Peace was the place to return to after death, where the battle spirit could rest in peace. Time crawled by, but the sea surface in front of him did not have any changes. All of the fish bones were extremely sharp and tough. They were natural weapons. The heavy demonic execution was not something any ordinary weapon could withstand, so these fish bones were a good choice. Other than the high consumption, there were no other flaws. Tang Tian, who was in high spirits, exerted even more strength and swam forward with all his might. Indigo mirror blue, is it a part of the blue sea? No, they are not ordinary blue dwarves. These blue dwarves looked as though they were carved out of sapphire. Their entire bodies were sparkling and translucent. Their eyes were indifferent, without any focus or life force. Tang Tian's gaze landed on the blue dwarves' hearts. There a blue flame was throbbing. It looked like a heart. Tang Tian laughed. He did not care. He did not know how many strange fishes he had killed. Tang Tian, who possessed the grasping flower seal and his powerful physique from a certain perspective, was the natural enemy of these strange fishes. Tang Tian gasped for breath. After continuously killing, his stamina was almost depleted. Tang Tian was stunned. The scene in front of him, why was it so familiar? He did not feel anything during the battle, but once it ended he immediately felt tired. The resistance in the blue sea was much greater than that in the air, and the consumption of stamina was also much greater. There were bruises all over his body. Although the strange fish's sonic attack couldn't cause any real damage to Tang Tian, it still left a lot of bruises on his body. The deep blue sea became brighter. This change made Tang Tian somewhat excited. In such a predicament, change was far better than no change at all. The picturesque scenery in the blue mirror was unchanging. After flying for a while, Tang Tian had the illusion that the sky and the clouds were just like a painting. Xiaolon sensed something stronger than ever, as if something was calling out to it. They were like an army, neatly arranged, their spears like a forest. As if sensing Tang Tian's thoughts, Xiaolon transmitted an intimate emotion. The grasping flower seal on his left hand was executed like a madman. Tang Tian could feel that Xiaolon had benefited greatly this time. The deep azure color was dense and reserved. After recovering some of his strength, Tang Tian heaved a sigh of relief. The strange fish's corpse had already melted into the blue sea, leaving behind a pile of fish bones. The further he swam, the brighter the blue sea became. After a while he finally reacted. It is the indigo mirror ocean. No wonder. If it is an illusion, as long as I break it, I will be able to return to reality. He had sensed an indistinct aura. There's an ambush. Come on. Rumble. Xiaolon knew that the situation was dangerous and did not dare to be a coward, and continued to help Tang Tian communicate with the demon, allowing Tang Tian's grasping flower seal to increase in power. Tang Tian sat on the mirror-like surface of the sea, and looked at the endless indigo mirror ocean in a daze. The mirror-like surface of the sea had nothing in it. If it was any other person they would think that it was a misconception, but Tang Tian had absolute trust in his intuition. His battle intuition was naturally astonishing. Adding on Bing's training and the gradual formation of the glass mental state by the grasping flower seal, it made his battle intuition reach an even more astonishing level. The Southern Cross Army has 4 seas. I have fallen into an even bigger illusion. Tang Tian became excited. The problem that he was most worried about had been solved. The haze in his mind was swept away, and the young man's fighting intent soared. Tang Tian's mind moved. Could it be that I am getting closer to the surface of the sea? The fishbone in his hand shattered. It was extremely tough. but after continuously withstanding the terrifying power of the heavy demonic execution, it was finally unable to take it and shattered. This guess made him extremely excited. He thought about Purple Cuckoo City. Outside of Purple Cuckoo City is the sea. Could it be that I am going back? The indigo mirror ocean trembled, even the stationary clouds in the sky trembled. All of the strange gemstone blue dwarves did not wield short spears but long spears. Tang Tian adopted a fighting stance like a statue. His entire body did not move. Tang Tian, who was in battle, never lacked patience. It cheered and pounced forward, greedily absorbing the blue flames on the weird fish's tentacles. Its absorption speed became faster and faster, and when the last blue flame was absorbed, Xiaolan's body was already azure blue. The gemstone blue dwarves in front of him were not to be trifled with, and their numbers were enough to cause despair. Luckily for Tang Tian, his body was outstanding, and the pure sound wave attacks did not cause much damage to him. Relying on his thick skin and thick muscles, Tang Tian also started to act barbarically, barging and barging. This unreasonable method of attack caused Tang Tian's lethality to increase greatly. The weird fishes quickly suffered heavy casualties, and after half an hour the ground was littered with fish corpses. The surface of the sea in front of him suddenly had bumps. It was unknown if it was because he had killed too many weird fishes, but his body started to release a faint aura. Tang Tian understood his own body extremely well, and knew that he definitely did not have such an odorless aura in the past. Tang Tian suddenly stopped in his tracks. He pulled out a fishbone, his expression gloomy. Following the direction of his senses, he moved forward with all his might. The indigo mirror ocean of the Southern Cross Army. The fish corpses that littered the ground in Xiaolan's eyes was a feast. Tang Tian collected all the fish bones and tied them into a bundle. Why is it the indigo mirror ocean? It was such a big bundle, and with a rough look, there were at least 100 of them, enough to last him for a while. Xiaolan seemed to be extremely afraid of the aura, and was extremely obedient in front of Tang Tian. Tang Tian still had lingering fear. The power of the sound waves was extremely powerful, and the frequency of the vibrations was so high that even he could not achieve it. It was only because his body had been trained to the extreme that he was able to survive. If it was any other person under such high-frequency vibrations, their organs would have long been injured. The damage caused by the vibrations had always been terrifying, and shattering was the most common result. The scene around him was reflected in his glass-like state of mind, and Tang Tian was not used to such a state. He had always been immersed in battle and burning with fighting intent. That was the battle of a youth. But now his state of mind and emotions seemed to be detached from the spectators. Although his efficiency in battle had increased, but he was not used to it. In the last few times Tang Tian encountered a few strange fishes, and the moment he pulled out a fishbone, the strange fishes would escape in fright. Tang Tian was dumbstruck. It was the first time the strange fishes had encountered him escaping. Tang Tian had also improved greatly. His grasping flower seal was becoming more and more refined. Other people's state of mind was like a lake, but his state of mind was like a smooth and sparkling glass platform. Although it was getting brighter, but it seemed to be further away than what he had thought. Tang Tian felt exhausted, and when he finally saw the surface of the sea, he was ecstatic and gathered his remaining strength. He surfaced. A blue figure slowly appeared from the surface of the sea. Could it be that I have killed too many strange fishes and am covered in killing intent? My heart is like glass, untainted by even a speck of dust. The ocean of exile is an endless prison, forever imprisoning criminals. The most troublesome thing about the strange fishes was that their blue mist could conceal their bodies, and even though Tang Tian had the grasping flower seal to dispel the mental attacks, he was still struck a few times. If he were to use his hand to unleash the heavy demonic execution, the power would be stronger and more agile, but the sharpness could not be compared to the fishbones. Tang Tian deeply understood that it was not a good habit to randomly brag. The indigo mirror ocean was the boundary between reality and illusion, a place of purification. The army of sapphire blue dwarves took a step forward. Tang Tian moved in a flash and arrived in front of a fish corpse. He pulled out a fishbone and returned to battle. Furthermore, the sound waves contained mental attacks. The prairie fire ocean was a place of energy, where tens of thousands of spirits were born. What caused Tang Tian to inhale cold air was that behind the army more and more blue dwarves appeared. It flew into Tang Tian's body, and slowly jumped between the demon's grasping flower fingers. Xiaolan was extremely excited. It did not have the lazy look from before, causing Tang Tian to be surprised. This fellow's appetite is getting bigger and bigger, seems like it has truly become stronger. I wonder what Xiaolan's final form will be like. Tang Tian's first reaction was to heave a sigh of relief. What he was most worried about was that he would be pulled into the blue ocean. Everyone was waiting for him to rescue them, but he was pulled into another place. Thinking about everyone made him extremely anxious. Tang Tian had a premonition that he was about to break through, but he was lacking an opportunity. The boundary between reality and illusion. It was the sixth fishbone that Tang Tian had used. Luckily for him, there were fish corpses everywhere and he did not lack any fishbones. Do you think that you can stop me like that? Suddenly, Tang Tian thought about his experience of training the thousand-cleaved demonic hand in the indigo mirror ocean, and all of the suspicions that he had previously had were suddenly enlightened. When he was in the blue ocean, he felt that the flow of time was extremely strange and he was unable to accurately judge the flow of time. Tang Tian's gaze congealed. Blue dwarves. The mirror-like surface of the sea made Tang Tian look like he was gliding on ice, dragging the fishbones that were taller than him. His speed was several times faster than when he was in the blue ocean. He was like a bird looking for its nest, tireless. Tang Tian's mouth revealed a disdainful smile. He took the rope that was dragging the fishbones from his shoulder and tied it to his waist. Xiaolan did not let go of any blue flames, and Tang Tian felt that Xiaolan was about to break through. Xiaolan's body was extremely congealed, like an extremely viscous liquid. Its movements were extremely slow. His mental state was stretched taut. The fishbones in his hand were released at an astonishing frequency. One after another, water blades that were as thin as threads shot out in all directions. There were constantly weird fishes that were sliced into two by the water blades. The blue mist pervaded the air, obstructing his vision. After resting for a while, he recovered his strength and allowed Xiaolan to sense the direction again, then he continued his journey. Chapter 764. Tang Tian mechanically brandished the fishbones and slashed mechanically. He did not know how long Tang Tian had been slashing for. We don't need you to bless us. We will definitely work hard. You don't have to worry about us. Rest well. Leave the battles here to us who are still alive. After a period of time, the blue tree would release countless of seeds like a dandelion. The seeds would flow along the water flow and rush to every corner of the blue sea. But very quickly, the seeds attracted countless of life forms in the blue sea like delicacies. He was startled for a moment, but regained a trace of clarity. The fishbones that were taller than him were all used up by him. After tossing and turning for a while, Tang Tian could not be bothered with it. Since he had met Xiaolan, the situation had become extremely strange. The scene in front of him was extremely majestic. Tang Tian actually forgot about his fatigue. The blue flames entered Xiaolan's body like raindrops. Xiaolan released a dazzling blue light. The surrounding gemstone blue dwarves seemed to be extremely afraid of the blue light, and retreated backwards like the tide. Tang Tian hesitated for a moment, then clenched his teeth and followed Xiaolan across the border. What surprised him was that he did not feel any resistance. The borders of the four seas actually did not have any resistance, but the four seas were clearly separated and did not interfere with each other. Tang Tian could not help but be surprised. When Tang Tian woke up, he realized that he was covered in injuries. He was covered in blood. His legs felt like lead. He could not lift his arms. His entire body was in pain. He swayed and swayed, but he did not sit down. The surrounding gemstone blue dwarves, who had lifeless mechanical faces, actually revealed a trace of fear. They stopped moving forward. Tang Tian turned his head back with difficulty. Behind him, the corpses of the gemstone blue dwarves were like wheat that had been cut down. There was no end to it. The blue flowers were extremely beautiful, as though they had just been plucked from the trees. They were soft and filled with life. Unknowingly, he had fallen asleep. Suddenly, Xiaolan flew up again. Tang Tian was shocked. Xiaolan was flying towards the ocean of peace. Tang Tian did not understand, but he thought that Xiaolan definitely had a reason. He carefully walked forward. The deathly still ocean of peace had a slight warmth, but it did not make him feel uncomfortable. The buoyancy of the black sea water was amazing. Tang Tian did not need to use any strength to float on the surface. The black ocean of peace was not as lifeless as Tang Tian had imagined. The black sea water was extremely warm and could nourish living souls. A familiar fluctuation came from above his head. Tang Tian did not have the strength to raise his head, but he knew it was Xiaolon. Peng, the fishbone in his hand shattered again. Tang Tian subconsciously touched the pile, but he touched nothing. Tang Tian tilted his head and thought about it. He felt that it was impossible. The Southern Cross Army was a mechanical army, and were proficient in mechanical techniques and mechanical battles. Tang Tian couldn't imagine what kind of person could perform such a miracle. This seed absorbed a large amount of blue flames, and like a seed, it began to germinate in the dazzling blue light, growing into a small tree in the blink of an eye. The blue small tree grew a flower bud, which continued to grow, and when the last ray of blue light disappeared, the flower bud blossomed. Tang Tian stared at the bronze plate for a long time, an indescribable feeling in his heart. He opened his eyes wide in a daze. Unknowingly, the gem blue dwarves around him had disappeared without a trace. Wherever the ripples passed, wisps of blue flames would rise from the bodies of the gemstone blue dwarves on the ground. He had a strange dream. In the depths of the blue sea, there was a gigantic tree. It had millions of blue leaves, and every leaf was the size of a small mountain. In the middle of every leaf there was a vortex which continuously spewed out blue energy. The blue energy surged out like water. If not for the fact that the tree was exactly the same as the one in his dream, if not for the fact that his mental state was strong enough, he would have definitely gone crazy. He had tried many methods, but was unable to move the tree in his mental state. His injured body started to heal. The blue light was not warm, but it made Tang Tian feel at ease. Tang Tian was stunned. He looked ahead. The blue flames slowly floated up. Like blue fireflies, he could not see the end of it. It was extremely beautiful. Apart from that, all the changes in his surroundings could be clearly reflected in his mind. He immediately benefited from this. In the past he had observed the seals of the demon's 6 arms countless of times, but this time he had a new understanding. Many details that he had not noticed before were all clearly displayed in his glass mental state. On the way, Tang Tian tried to communicate with the blue flower but failed. If not for the fact that the blue flower was transformed from Xiaolon, he would definitely feel that it was bewitching. It was truly bewitching, and along the way Tang Tian did not meet any other strange creatures. The most bewitching thing for Tang Tian was that he realized that he had actually trained in the grasping flower seal. The glass mental state was unbreakable, but inside the crystal clear mental state, what was up with the small tree? It was as if he saw Uncle Bing placing a bronze nameplate into the black sea water, gently pushing it, watching it float away. He muttered to himself. Tang Tian woke up and realized that unknowingly his palms had actually formed the grasping flower seal, and in the middle of the seal there was a blue flower. Eternal peace. Ocean of peace. That's right, Tang Tian felt that it had already broken through the limits of humans. 2 crisscrossing lines formed a gigantic cross, each extending into the distance, splitting the space into 4 for different oceans, each in a row. We will definitely win. Could it be that Uncle Bing and the rest were so powerful in the past? The 6-armed demon in his body did not have any reaction to the small tree around him. But the blue flower would often run into the palm of the demon's grasping flower seal. The demon also had some changes. The angry fist seal and the grasping flower seal's arms had become extremely congealed. Suddenly, the blue flower in his palm floated up and flew towards a direction. The direction the blue flower flew in was extremely straight, obviously leading the way. Tang Tian chased after it. That was the 4 Cs of the Southern Cross Army. Tang Tian quivered and immediately jumped up. He could not see Xiaolon. If he could, he would definitely be surprised. Xiaolan's body had transformed into a sparkling and translucent blue crystal, releasing a terrifying undulation. The undulation was like a stone thrown into the sea, producing layers of ripples. Tang Tian was startled. He had never thought that the 4 Cs would actually be like 4 jigsaw puzzles. An invisible barrier separated the 4 Cs. It was definitely not natural, it was definitely man-made. The blue flame the size of a finger slowly floated towards Xiaolon as though it was being summoned. Tang Tian's eyes were red from killing. He did not even need to differentiate who was there, as he was surrounded by enemies. As long as he continued to kill, he would drag the fish bones and kill with all his might. It emitted a sweet qi, but was unable to escape from the large number of creatures in the blue sea. He closed his eyes and bathed in the dazzling blue light. After the fishbone shattered, he pulled out another one and continued to kill. Although it was not enough for him to immediately train in the remaining 4 seals, but it was still extremely helpful to him and he improved quickly. Tang Tian also stopped and stared blankly in front of him. But what made Tang Tian depressed was that he was still able to communicate with Xiaolon previously, although the communication was extremely vague, but at least they were able to communicate. But after Xiaolon transformed into a flower, the communication had disappeared. The blue light became even brighter, and Tang Tian felt as though there was a blue sun above his head. The dazzling blue light caused him to be unable to open his eyes. What does that mean? After flying for an unknown period of time, Xiaolon suddenly stopped. Tang Tian then realized that the seed was Xiaolon. At that moment, strategies and techniques were no longer important. The tide of sapphire blue dwarves did not give him any time to think and could only instinctively kill. Finally, there was a seed that met a middle-aged man in the blue sea. The middle-aged man felt that it was very unique and refined it into a unique blue light aura. After the middle-aged man died, the blue light was passed down to his son. His son met an unconscious lady, and Tang Tian immediately recognized that the unconscious lady was Gu Shui. He took a deep breath. In the silent blue mirror ocean with no one to communicate with, it was an extremely painful and lonely thing. Tang Tian wanted to laugh, but he did not even have the strength to move his lips. This is Xiaolon. After walking for a long time, Tang Tian suddenly realized that not far away, there seemed to be something floating. There was a small tree growing in his mental state. If this was not demonic, then Tang Tian felt that there was nothing that could be called demonic. Upon stepping into the ocean of peace, Tang Tian's vision changed. With a thought, he flew a few times and scooped up something from the surface of the sea. Tang Tian quickly experienced the benefits of the glass mental state. Previously, if he flew for a long period of time, although his body could endure it, but his mental state would still feel tired. But now, after flying for a longer period of time, his mental state did not feel tired at all. Southern Cross Army's first-class soldier Zhou Xian died in the Battle of Qingshan. No need for protection, rest in peace. Other than his instincts, he also had a breath. Tang Tian placed all of his focus on training, and only left a strand of his mental state to follow the blue flower. Tang Tian was stunned. Could it be that my dream? The incessant surging was the ocean of exile. The smooth as a mirror was the indigo mirror ocean. The sea covered in flames was the prairie blazing ocean, and the black and silent ocean of peace. Upon entering the ocean of peace, Xiaolon entered Tang Tian's body. The other four arms were still blurry and illusory. Tang Tian could tell that the demon had become stronger, and that was a good thing. It was a bronze plate. On the front of the bronze plate was the Southern Cross Army's insignia, and behind it was a row of small words. Whenever the living prayed for the dead to rest in peace, they would usually pray for blessings and blessings for the living. But this bronze plate had the words, "No need for protection, rest in peace." Out of the 6 demon seals, he had only mastered 2 seals and still had 4 more. The blue light would be injected into Gu Shui's body. The gem blue dwarves became restless. The fear on their faces became even denser. Chapter 765. The God-Fist Light Tree. The last 3 light pillars merged into one, transforming into a single light pillar that continued to grow towards the ground. They grew slower and slower, and when they were 3 m away from the ground, they stopped. Tang Tian's eyes were blurred with tears. Countless light auras converged towards his fist from every corner of the ocean of peace. Compared to the towering trunk of the divine fist light tree, they were as tiny as grains of sand. Only the brave can win. Very quickly he reached Ghostface Mask's residence. Tears flowed out once again. After countless of collisions, all of the heroic spirits were smashed into pieces and scattered into the ocean. Advance! 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 The ocean of peace seemed to be boiling. The tsunami surged, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. Southern Cross Army. If he was injured, it meant that his law surface was perfected, and it was just a temporary explosion. He turned and raised his head, facing the sky above him. He opened his arms and looked at his cracked face with an indescribable determination. In 100 years we will fight side by side again. Tang Tian felt the world spinning around him. His consciousness was slowly fading away, and before he fainted he could hear the deafening cheers. The countless of heroic spirits behind him shouted in unison, "Southern Cross Army, advance!" Smashed into pieces and scattered into the ocean. The God Fist that had never been completed before was completed for the first time. The berserk ocean of peace suddenly calmed down, as though it was being suppressed by an invisible hand. "Break! Southern Cross Army advance!" What replied him was an angry roar. "Southern Cross Army advance!" They only had one life, the target's life was the same and the assassin's life was the same. As long as they survived, it meant that they still had a chance. For the sake of killing in one strike to increase the risk to Yin Wufeng, who was an old hand, it was the most foolish thing to do. "The army is in danger, we need reinforcements. The army is in danger, we need reinforcements." The densely packed heroic spirits below were all silent. What responded to him was a furious roar that sounded like a landslide or tsunami. "Fight!" He pulled back his fist, causing the calm ocean of peace to start to ripple. Yin Wufeng looked at the house in front of him and quietly snuck in. "Pa pa pa." Another heroic soul took over the command. It roared angrily like an angry lion. Everything in the surroundings was like a burst bubble, constantly being annihilated. How could he stand idly by with such a strong belief, such deep emotions, such heroic feelings and such bravery and sacrifice? To be able to fight against the death god's scythe without being injured, Yin Wufeng immediately turned and ran, because that meant that the other party had touched upon the highest level of power. 10,000 years. The heroic spirit's voice resounded in the air above the ocean of peace. "It has been a full 10,000 years, 100 years is a cycle. But we are still unable to charge out. That battle should have ended a long time ago. In these 10,000 years, there were no more new spirits. The army should have died. What we are doing now might be meaningless." He narrowed his eyes and was about to attack. Tang Tian didn't know if he was crying or roaring along. He only had one thought in his mind: fight. A female heroic soul shouted loudly. She resolutely crashed into the sky barrier. But what if? What if the army was still fighting? What if someone from the army was still alive? What if the army was waiting to rise? For a bunch of old fellows who are already dead, a 1 in 10,000 chance is enough. In the night sky of East Immortal City, the streets were extremely quiet. It was a special period of time and no one would go out at night. In the entire Sin domain, there were not more than 5 martial artists who had stepped into the law domain. Yin Wufeng knew who he could offend and who he could not, and they were all people he could not afford to offend. Su Ye's strength was weak and was not enough to pose a threat to Yin Wufeng, and he was even heavily injured. The Null Division prisoners had good physiques, but in the eyes of a powerful martial artist of his level, their fighting ability was close to zero. "The army is in danger, we need reinforcements." "Did we break through the boundary of the dream realm?" A heroic spirit shouted out. Tang Tian heard a buzzing sound. Before he could react, the bronze nameplate in his hand broke free from Tang Tian's hand and flew into the sky. The boundless black ocean of peace beneath his feet dissipated like a broken light aura. But there were more and more light sand and they continued to enter the main branch of the light tree. Countless heroic spirits frantically crashed into the sky like a tide. There was a formless barrier in the sky that was like an iron wall. When the heroic spirits crashed into it, the sky did not move at all. The heroic spirits transformed into countless bronze fragments and fell into the ocean of peace. He suddenly shouted out, "The life and death of our army is unknown, how can we rest in peace?" "Is that the Southern Cross Army?" "The one who inherited the Southern Cross Army is me." When the light tree's main branch touched Tang Tian's glass mental state, Tang Tian's body trembled, his face was filled with tears. "The army is in danger, we need reinforcements." All of that was not important. Yin Wufeng's investigation was to see if Ghost Face Mask was injured, and that was the crux of the assassination. "The life and death of our army is unknown, how can we rest in peace?" It was not only to make it easier for them to succeed, but also to be able to retreat if they failed. In the past 10,000 years, in the unknown ocean of peace, the ocean of peace that everyone thought to be a paradise, every 100 years such an intense battle would occur. All of these heroic spirits that had already passed away, gave up on resting, fought with all their might, disregarded everything and were crazy. The soundless roars converged into a powerful current that swept through the ocean of peace. The hysterical roars resonated in the sky above the ocean of peace. Countless of figures smashed into the sky even more crazily, causing even more bronze fragments to descend. But even more figures shot out from the ocean of peace and smashed into the sky. Even if it was an illusion, even if it was an illusion, even if it was a group of heroic spirits that had already died, even if they were doing something stupid. Just a bit more. Just a bit more. The changes in Tang Tian's glass mental state were like smoke. The light aura around the heavenly demon's body exploded out. The blue flower in his grasping flower seal flew out, transforming into a bewitching and beautiful blue flower that floated down and danced around. The angry fist seal leaped with flames, throbbing powerfully like a war drum. Every time it throbbed, there would be a wave of blazing red light that swept out. Suddenly, a strange light aura leaked out from Ghost Face Mask's residence. A heroic spirit with cracks all over his body flew into the sky. Tang Tian recognized him. He was the first heroic spirit that had smashed into the sky. There were so many heroic spirits, but no one saw Tang Tian. Behind her, countless figures followed closely. Southern Cross Army advance. The ocean of peace once again returned to silence. The sky shattered. Every bronze nameplate flew into the sky and transformed into an illusory spirit figure. In the blink of the eye, the densely packed figures rushed into the sky from every corner of the ocean of peace. It was a majestic sight. It looked like it was raining at Tang Tian's feet. He lowered his head to look. The bronze nameplate fragments were falling down like rain. His face that was filled with tears involuntarily revealed a smile. Southern Cross Army advance. But the heroic spirits continued to advance wave after wave like a tide. All of the heroic spirits raised their heads. Tang Tian's fist continued to pull apart. The light aura on his right fist was so dazzling that his figure could not be seen. Tang Tian's fist struck the sky. He had been in this line of work for many years and had assassinated countless famous people, so he naturally knew the way of assassination. He had arrived at East Immortal City a few days ago, but he did not take action, but carefully gathered information. Assassination did not seem difficult, but to succeed in one strike, ample preparation was required. And the more information he had, the more leeway he could make. Tang Tian did not know, but he could feel the determination and frantic fighting intent, which contained a strand of hope and anticipation. The army is in danger. We need reinforcements. Only courageous people would be able to face the futility of failure. Only courageous people would be able to persevere in their own beliefs and fight even after death. Only courageous people would be able to face the boundary of life and death and hope without retreating. He quietly snuck into the house. All of the Null Division prisoners were extremely responsible, but their guards in Yin Wufeng's eyes were useless. Yin Wufeng had investigated very clearly. Ghost Face Mask was injured. Tang Tian's heart was filled with suspicion and shock as he watched the scene in front of him. Seeing the wave after wave of attacks, he did not understand what they were doing. A dazzling light aura lit up from Tang Tian's fist, and in the black ocean of peace, it was as though a sun had risen. Ghost Face Mask only had Su Yi and the Null Division prisoners by his side. What responded to him were the figures that floated to his side, all of them shouting at the top of their lungs in unison, "Fight, fight, fight!" The countless heroic spirits that filled the sky were like moths flying into flames, like elite guards that were trying to fill up the sea. They were frantically rushing towards the sky. He had investigated very clearly. For example, the various families in East Immortal City had already submitted to Ghost Face Mask, which was originally a huge problem, but his luck was good. It was said that the elites of the various families were brought out of the city by one of Ghost Face Mask's subordinates. Just at that moment, a roar came out beside his ears. Tang Tian gave it his all. He did not hold back at all. The Godfist light tree's trunk miraculously started to grow downwards. Tang Tian's tears and mucus flowed freely. His chest felt as though it was blocked by something, as though something was burning. He felt extremely uncomfortable but also proud. A large group of heroic spirits rushed towards the sky. Although Yin Wufeng was fearful of such a powerful martial artist, but he still had the possibility of succeeding, and injuries caused by the highest level of power were definitely not so easily healed. Countless of heroic spirits looked at the sun. They transformed into countless black shadows and entered the sun. The bronze plate fragments slowly converged, and many bronze plates that were covered with cracks floated on the surface of the sea. One by one, the heroic spirits slowly floated out from the bronze plates. Their entire bodies were covered with cracks, as though they were porcelain people that were pieced back together. Looking at them, there was no end to them. How can I sit back and watch? One by one, heroic spirits flew into Tang Tian's body from all directions. They entered Tang Tian's mind and transformed into light spots, advancing wave after wave towards the Godfist light tree's main trunk. At his level, raising his strength by 10% was extremely terrifying. With the growing Yin sword in his hand, his heart immediately calmed down. The sword was truly filled with evil and was extremely suitable for assassination. With the sword, his strength could increase by 10%. Just at that moment, countless bronze plates flew out from the ocean of peace and shot towards the sky. Chapter 766. Fatty One was in a daze. Ghost Face Mask does not belong to the honorable martial continent. If not, he would have left long ago. Tang Tian did not know that there were two important people watching him from the shadows. He was completely shocked by Xiaolan's terrifying power. Yin Wufeng's every move did not escape the glass mental state, and even Tang Tian could not help but praise Yin Wufeng's craftiness and experience. Being caught off guard, Yin Wufeng's vision turned white. He groaned, ignoring everything else. His figure turned into smoke and escaped outwards. Pa pa pa. When the last drop of blood dripped, Yin Wufeng fell to the ground. The life and death of the army is unknown. How can I rest in peace? What technique is that? Yin Wufeng already knew that his mission had failed. The ghost face mask strength had far exceeded his expectations. It quietly floated in front of him. Tang Tian's mind moved. A blue light quietly shot into the wall in the corner. As though it could pierce through nothing. He had thought of all sorts of possibilities such as failure, but he did not find it strange. He had used Yin Wufeng because he believed in his strength and also because he wanted to test the waters. If he could be killed, it did not matter if he was Ancestor Li's inheritor. Dead people were never important. Tang Tian was shocked. He subconsciously formed the grasping flower seal. The blue light continued to shine, but Tang Tian, who was at peace, did not feel that it was piercing to his eyes. Countless light figures swept past the glass mental state, and a blurry figure shrunk to the corner of the wall. What is he trying to do? But out of all the possibilities that he had thought of, he did not think that Yin Wufeng would be killed so easily. That strange and terrifying blue flower made him feel a chill down his spine. Ancestor Li's legend had not been completely forgotten, and the legend of the heavenly flower was still being passed down by word of mouth. A gust of wind blew past, and there was nothing on the ground except for a dusty sword. Without thinking, he wanted to escape. His intuition towards danger had saved his life countless of times. Honestly, Fatty One felt that the possibility of success was very small, no, extremely small. Such a small chance of success, there was no meaning in investing, but why was his heart palpitating with excitement? The blue light flew out from the wall. It was extremely fast, and the shocked Yin Wufeng only had time to raise the growing Yin sword in his hand. Suddenly, he lowered his head and inadvertently glanced at something, only to be stunned. Between his fingers, a bewitching blue flower was shockingly visible. The dust particles exploded one after another. Tang Tian's mind trembled. If it wasn't a dream, then what happened in the ocean of peace? Tang Tian's head buzzed and he felt goosebumps all over his back. Was this not a dream? Faintly, the ocean of peace appeared in front of Tang Tian's eyes. The scene of everyone rushing towards the sky like a tidal wave and being smashed into pieces. All of the porcelain-like figures, all of the resolute figures, all of them roaring out in anger that shook everyone's hearts. Just as Tang Tian's mind moved, the small bronze sword flew in front of him. The small bronze sword carried the style of the Southern Cross Army. Its blade was covered with cracks, causing Tang Tian to think of the broken porcelain heroic spirits in the ocean of peace. That ghost face mask would definitely return to the sacred Saint Galaxy. Thinking of this, Fatty One's mind swayed. Thinking of this, Fatty One hesitated. The strength of the honorable martial continent had long been deeply imprinted in the hearts of the Sin Domain people. Can Ghost Face Mask defeat the honorable martial continent? The sudden light aura that shot out from the house shocked Yin Wufeng. Old Man Zhu was confused by the name of Ancestor Li's inheritor. But Fatty One was extremely clear. He could tell that Ghost Face Mask's ambitions were not in the Sin Domain. Furthermore, Ghost Face Mask's powerful martial strength had sobered him up, and from a different angle he immediately felt that his vision was clear. How can I rest in peace? Tang Tian slowly opened his eyes, only to realize that he had tears streaming down his face. 10,000 years of obsession, 100 years of reincarnation, the heart of the army, the heroic spirit will not die. As though it had sensed Tang Tian's thoughts, the undying sword trembled. Its powerful and solemn hoarse roar sounded out, like a strong man's sad song, like a raging inferno burning his body. the fighting intent pierced through the sky. It was extremely heroic. A blue bewitching flower stuck onto the blade of the growing Yin sword. Tang Tian looked at the words in a daze. The powerful and hoarse roar that reverberated in the sky above the ocean of peace seemed to be right beside his ears. Hearing the familiar sound of the spore exploding, Yin Wufeng's heart calmed down. They looked down on the porcine domain. He instinctively twisted his waist and dodged to the side, but his chest suddenly felt pain and his body froze. No need for protection, rest in peace. The blue flower on his finger suddenly lit up. The dazzling blue light instantly enveloped the entire room. Tang Tian, who had tears in his eyes, finally understood. It was not Xiaolon who had summoned him into the dream, but the undying heroic spirits, because he was the true leader of the Southern Cross Army. Suddenly, his gaze landed on the six-armed demon, and as though he was struck by lightning, he was dumbstruck. On Yin Wufeng's corpse, there was a tiny blue wound. The blue color of the wound quickly spread, and very quickly, the strange blue color spread to his entire body, causing Yin Wufeng's corpse to become sparkling and translucent like a sapphire. Is this a dream? Yin Wufeng's pupils dilated, and in the next moment, the dazzling blue light erupted without any warning. And the tide of Southern Cross Army advance. He only had one thought in his mind: escape. To an assassin it was undoubtedly a fatal mistake. Xiaolon. The fatty looked at the old man and said indifferently, Elder Zhu's words are wrong. Whether or not I think it is not important. What is important is what other people think. The fatty kept his bitter smile and said sternly, legends say that in the past Ancestor Li's demon six seals had the illusion of heavenly flowers falling. As expected, it is not a dream. The glass mental state was sparkling and translucent. Without a speck of dust, the sapling was extremely eye-catching. And if Ghostface Mask truly wanted to return to the Sacred Saint Galaxy, he would have to fight with the Honorable Martial Continent. Let's see Lu Xingxiang's reaction. The old man said faintly. The old man remained silent. What's going on? There's a line of small words on the sword blade. Ancestor Li's inheritor might seem important, but in truth it was not important at all. The truly important thing was Ghostface Mask's strength. Without strength, using the title of Ancestor Li's inheritor was simply seeking death. If he was strong enough, even without the title of Ancestor Li's inheritor, he could still move unhindered in the Sin domain. Even if he personally took action, he would not be able to do better than Xiaolon. The crystallized corpse started to crumble. How is that possible? Tang Tian held onto the bronze sword that was filled with cracks and muttered, From today onwards, you will be called the Undying Sword. With my heart the heroic spirit will not die. Senior's heroic spirit, fight with me. Every spore that exploded would release a fine silk, and in the blink of the eye, a thick silk screen was formed. All of the spore silk were extremely tough, and the crucial point was that there were many of them. Although the blue flower was bewitching, but to break through the layers of defense was not an easy task. A blue flower petals wrapped around the growing Yin sword and returned to Tang Tian's room. After throwing the growing Yin sword in front of Tang Tian, the flower petals disappeared and transformed back into Xiaolon, which entered Tang Tian's body. In the weeping sword seal's palm where the sound sand was, a small bronze sword swam around like a small fish. The gray sword screen scattered and countless of fine dust particles flew in all directions. Boswen knew the meaning behind Old Man Zhu's words. Lu Tianwen had not appeared for a long time, and the various families started to guess if he had met with a mishap. Everyone could think of it, so how could the experienced Lu Xingxiang sit and watch? Sharp Wind City was currently filled with experts, waiting for Ghostface Mask to walk into their trap. But for some reason Fatty Wen did not believe that Sharp Wind City could stop Ghostface Mask. But he did not refute there was no meaning in such a fight. After inspecting his own body, Tang Tian became even more bewildered. Suddenly his face changed. Even though he could not see, but Yin Wufeng, who had already grasped the entire place, was still able to accurately follow the escape route that he had long planned out, and not blindly fly into the sky. He was experienced and knew that flying into the sky in such a passive state was equivalent to exposing himself to the enemy, and would only make him a target. That was the only word left in his mind. The scene in front of him gradually returned to normal. He looked at the terrifying flower in front of him in a daze, fresh blood slowly dripping down the petals, revealing the beautiful and bewitching blue color. The life and death of the army is unknown, how can I rest in peace? The blue flower suddenly transformed into a rain of flowers, sweeping up the growing Yin sword on the ground and entered Tang Tian's room. The moment he saw Xiaolon, he suspected that it was a dream. If it is truly a dream, then what is Xiaolon? The sacred saint galaxy, such a distant name, the homeland of my ancestors. Fatty Wen, who was born in the Sin domain, did not have deep feelings for the sacred saint galaxy, but he knew one thing: the sacred saint galaxy was not as poor and destitute as the Sin domain. Even Yin Wu Feng failed. The middle-aged man who spoke was fat and dressed extravagantly like a merchant. The old man raised his eyebrows. Does Boss Wen truly think that he is Ancestor Li's inheritor? Yin Wu Feng, who was frantically escaping, suddenly felt as though he was being stared at by a wild beast. The hairs on his body tensed up, his heart was shocked. Without thinking, he suddenly pounced to the side, the growing Yin sword in his hand, releasing a layer of sword screen to protect his entire body. In the distant corner, the two people who were watching from afar had pale faces. He retracted his chi, not daring to reveal anything, and hid in the shadows. The law he trained in was extremely unorthodox, called Ghost Yin Mushroom. His law surface was like a mushroom, thus it was called Ghost Yin Mushroom. The power it projected was extremely feminine, and the Yin attribute power was extremely suitable for concealing his chi. The scene of the viscous red blood slowly retreating from the beautiful petals caused people to feel a chill in their hearts. The other person was an old man with a face full of hardships. His hands were covered with calluses. He looked no different from an ordinary laborer, just that his eyes had a faint light flickering. He was quiet for a long time, then said, "Does Boss Wen recognize this flower?" Tang Tian immediately inspected his body. He subconsciously caressed the sword blade, and a familiar and intimate consciousness came to him. That is... Damn it! Yin Wu Feng, who had calmed down, became even faster. He stuck close to the wall of the alley and swept forward. The thick silk screen behind me was instantly pierced through. How is that possible? Yin Wu Feng quietly concealed himself outside the house. The blue light that leaked out from the house was extremely intense, causing him to feel uneasy. Just at that moment, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. People who were proficient in assassination were extremely sensitive to danger. The wall in front of him suddenly lit up with a blue light. The blue light seemed to have a power that could suck away one's soul, causing one's heart to palpitate. The dream was extremely clear. Every single detail was extremely clear. Chapter 767. But with such an intense explosion, even Ghost Face Mask will not be able to survive. Ghost Face Mask, who was covered with blood markings, stood quietly in the night, his scarlet eyes staring at the martial artists, brimming with killing intent. All of their hands lit up with dazzling light auras, converging into one. He had nowhere to run. You are fated to be enemies with the world. Suyi felt that Master was agitated. In the eyes of the majority, Ghost Face Mask was a liar. Someone shouted out from the crowd, causing everyone to be filled with courage. Even the people who were hesitating threw their hesitation to the back of their minds. That's right, they are in Sharp Wind City, they have the advantage in numbers, so what if Ghost Face Mask is powerful? Even if the entire world is his enemy, even if my body is crushed, even if I have nothing, I am not afraid at all. Seniors of the Southern 10 armies, just wait and see, we are also very powerful. So fast. Wasn't Master injured? Why? 40 martial artists, without even releasing a single move, were reduced to dust. Suyi forcefully stabilized himself, his face filled with shock. Master is... Wherever the ripple passed, the space seemed to distort and shatter. Then let's begin. He was deeply shocked, extremely touched, but not envious at all. Immediately, 10 figures pounced towards Tang Tian from all directions. Most of the martial artists' eyes landed on the terrifying slash marks on the ground, their faces changing. But there were a few martial artists who looked at Tang Tian with blazing gazes. What kind of failure can compare to being crushed once every 100 years? What kind of sorrow can compare to being trapped in an ice coffin for 10,000 years? This guy is definitely bluffing. The exploding light ball gradually dimmed and dissipated. A light sound came out like a watermelon exploding. What a joke. Before forming the Weeping Sword Seal, Tang Tian would never have thought that the unique characteristic of the Weeping Sword Seal would actually be vibration. The tiny undying sword spun around, Waves of strange ripples slowly rippled out. When the dust dissipated, only a third of the majestic city wall remained, with a 50 m long and 15 m deep crater. It looked like a terrifying wound. Luckily, the martial artists who were remorseful for their slow reactions only rejoiced in their hearts. The ghost face mask was actually so terrifying, in one move 40 martial artists were all killed. No one could see if the slash mark was personally made by the ghost face mask, but a few of the quick-witted fellows had already thought of a few ways to create such a deep hole. A few of them concluded that ghost face mask was a liar, and wanted to create such a huge pit to scare everyone. A wave of fine, invisible ripples spread out in all directions. However, the vibration occurred within his body and directly affected Tang Tian's 5 viscera and 6 bowels. This left Tang Tian with no way to deal with it. But very quickly Tang Tian experienced the beauty of the weeping sword seal. His internal organs, which were very difficult to refine, became increasingly tough under the continuous high-frequency vibrations. A swindler had a glib tongue and knew how to act, but as soon as he made a move he would be exposed. He didn't want to wait a moment longer. Ding. Generally speaking, it was very difficult for sound wave attacks to cause any damage to Tang Tian's internal organs. Tang Tian's flesh, blood, muscles and bones were extremely strong. When the vibration touched his body, it would be automatically resisted and weakened by his body, disappearing into nothingness. I am Ghost Face Mask. Tang Tian took advantage of the night to leave East Immortal City with Su Yi. The martial artists surrounding him froze, their roars disappeared, the light auras of their laws stopped moving, their sinister expressions froze. Because he had his own glory, he had his own brothers who could live and die with him, brothers who could entrust their backs to them without any worries. They had gone through the flames of war, they had gone through life and death situations, and they had the same beliefs and fought side by side. There was no fluctuation in his voice, as though he was narrating an extremely ordinary matter. The unconcealed killing intent was like the night wind, causing everyone to feel a bone-chilling intent. Out of the 40 martial artists, more than half of them were elites who had gained enlightenment on law surfaces, and when they lost control of their laws and self-detonated, the resulting explosion was extremely powerful, and even though they were watching from afar, they still felt that it was terrifying. Overlooking the sharp wind city in the night, he could feel the raging fighting intent in his chest. The ghost face was covered with bloodlines. It was extremely sinister and terrifying. His black pupils were like burning red iron, extremely eye-catching in the night. The Southern Cross Army's glory, beliefs belonged to Bing, belonged to Ah Xin, belonged to Screw, belonged to the undying heroic spirits. They had once fought side by side, they had once shared life and death. Under the same flag they shouted and burned with their beliefs. Siyi was completely shocked. What technique is that strange little sword? So terrifying. What they are writing now is a legend that belongs to them. He suddenly formed the weeping sword seal, and a small bronze sword floated in front of him. The dazzling glory was truly touching, but it was the glory of the past, the glory of the seniors, and not his, even if he was the current leader of the Southern Cross Army. The high temperature of the explosion did not dissipate, and in the distorted air, a blurry figure wearing a mask appeared. He flicked the sword blade with his finger. All of the martial artists of Sharp Wind City who had rushed over noticed the proud figure in the sky, and their faces changed. When they saw the collapsed city walls and gigantic crater beneath Ghost Face Mask's feet, they could not help but take in cold breaths. What are the setbacks and predicaments in front of me? The high-frequency vibration's destructive power was astonishing. Tang Tian knew that, but he never thought that such a vibration would actually appear in his own body. Tang Tian watched as Sharp Wind City got closer and closer. The fighting intent in his chest suddenly soared. With a flick of his wrist, Su Yi, who was in his hands, was flung 300 m away. Countless blood splattered out at the same time. The law light aura that was out of control exploded. The dazzling light ball engulfed Ghost Face Mask's body. The light aura from the explosion mixed with the blood, adding a tinge of blood as though it was a dazzling blood sun. Tang Tian's speed suddenly increased, like a sword that swept forward at lightning speed. Tang Tian's speed increased exponentially, his entire being became like a wisp of smoke, flying to the sky above Sharp Wind City. Tang Tian watched on coldly as though the scene in front of him had nothing to do with him. It was no secret that the Fu family wanted to deal with Ghost Face Mask in Sharp Wind City, and in the past few days the rumors regarding Ghost Face Mask had spread far and wide. but the majority of the rumors were about him impersonating Ancestor Li's inheritor, which became the joke of many people. Bang! Tang Tian flew forward at full speed. The ice-cold wind was like blades. His heart was like a raging inferno burning wantonly. Tang Tian knew what that meant. The power of the physique did not come out of nowhere, it came from the 5 viscera and 6 bowels. And when the 5 viscera and 6 bowels became stronger, it was like the soil becoming more fertile, and the trees would naturally grow better. Tang Tian's strength had increased explosively. He had already formed 3 seals out of the 6 demon seals. The angry fist seal caused his entire body to be filled with qi and blood. The grasping flower seal caused his mind to be crystal clear. But the weeping sword seal was completely different from the other 2 seals. Everyone's expressions froze and suddenly turned into fear. What better prey could there be than a pretentious liar? Everyone was stunned by the terrifying scene. My own strength has improved again. A small blood scar appeared on a martial artist's face. Following that, more and more blood scars appeared like a red spider web. They were like porcelain that had been smashed, and were once again pieced together. The blood scars were everywhere. Suyi was being carried by Tang Tian and felt extremely awkward. Which subordinate was being carried by their superior? He thought of ways to get Tang Tian to let him down, but Tang Tian ignored him. In the night, the outline of Sharp Wind City gradually became clearer, causing Suyi to open his eyes wide. Suddenly, his entire body became lighter. The wind became even more intense. The master was increasing his speed. The frequency of the undulation was extremely high, and had long surpassed the limits of what the human ear could capture. He looked down on everyone indifferently. We have more people. Tang Tian did not move an inch in the night. He did not have any intention of dodging. The feeling of his 5 viscera and 6 bowels vibrating at the same time made his body numb. If not for the angry fist seal's red light continuously tempering him, causing his 5 viscera and 6 bowels to be much stronger than before, just the frequency of the vibrations was enough to injure him. Sharp Wind City sank into a dead silence. The deep voice reverberated in the sky above Sharp Wind City like rolling thunder. No one could tell if he was happy or angry, but it overpowered all the shouts and roars. Feeling the slight numbness in his body, Tang Tian used all his strength to rush forward. The blade aura pierced deeply into the city walls, and the high-frequency vibrations immediately spread out along the city walls. The sturdy city walls were like biscuits that crumbled with a bang, causing dust to rise up. The heroic spirits in the ocean of peace made him feel that time was pressing. Only the brave can win. The noisy Sharp Wind City instantly became quiet. Tang Tian never thought of escaping. Sharp Wind City was as bright as day. He raised his arm and slashed down. A terrifying blade aura that brought along countless of minute ripples entered the city walls. Those who imprison my subordinates will die. Sharp Wind City was the Fu family's territory, and in the city the Fu family was the true owner. If I kill him, the Fu family will definitely reward me handsomely. Wherever he swept past, formless ripples would spread out like water ripples. Tang Tian could feel that the space around him was being dismembered and shattered by the fine vibrating ripples. Ghost face mask. What's going on? Someone's attacking? Tang Tian raised his right arm. The formless ripples with his arm as the center slowly spread out. The weeping sword seal's vibrations were extremely unique, unless Tang Tian released it. Otherwise, the vibrations would only be felt at the moment of contact. The pitch-black and quiet Sharp Wind City awoke from its slumber. All of the residences quickly lit up with lights. The sharp and shrill alarms rang out incessantly. One after another figures surged out from every corner of Sharp Wind City, all of them soaring into the sky. For some reason, Tang Tian suddenly thought of that, and the corners of his mouth behind the mask twitched. As long as there was merit, the Fu family would never be stingy. Chapter 768. The growing Yin sword in his hand suddenly released a deep whimper. Black mist spewed out from the sword blade, but it seemed to be slashed apart by the sword. The clouds in the night sky surged under the slash, but the growing Yin sword's blade did not tremble at all, even under such an astonishing might. The two of them were extremely astute and initially planned to watch first. But upon seeing Ghost Face Mask's move, the two of them immediately knew how powerful it was, and knew that they could not watch by the side. Thus the two of them took action at the same time. Tang Tian did not know what a demon was, but he had his own understanding. That's right, it is willpower, the willpower to save everyone no matter what, the willpower to win no matter what. I will let him know how powerful I am. Just like ancestrally in the past. Wherever the black/aura passed, it would destroy everything. The shattered auras rained down like rain, blood and flesh splattered everywhere, effortlessly carving out a path of blood. Fu Jingji was not an inflexible person, he was very clear that in front of absolute strength, all schemes and plans were just a joke. Against such an arrogant and bloodthirsty person, why do we need to speak so much? The person who spoke was tall, his eyes were sunken in, he had an eagle nose and thin lips, he had an indescribable sinister aura. But Fu Jingji immediately laughed. I am truly thinking too much ancestrally? In the past few hundred years, there was only one Ancestor Li. All the people who hailed as Ancestor Li's inheritor, none of them could reach Ancestor Li's height. No, they could not even reach half of Ancestor Li's height. If he wanted to blame someone, he could only blame Ghostface Mask himself. The title of Ancestor Li's inheritor had long been overused and it was nothing much. But a powerful Ancestor Li's inheritor would definitely become a thorn in the eyes of the four main cities. If they added in the mysterious Ursa Major Null Division, the four main cities would no longer be afraid. Such power and might was enough to topple the Xin domain's current structure. A few figures appeared beside Fu Jingji at the same time surrounding Tang Tian. All of them had unkind expressions. In front of the black/aura, the light auras that had just lit up were as weak as bubbles and shattered. Fu Jingji regained his composure, he soared into the sky, his gaze landing on Ghostface Mask and said, "Such might. Not only did you disturb the rest of the seniors, you even dared to start a massacre in Sharpwind City. You truly have guts." Tang Tian did not move at all. All kinds of mockery and ridicule entered his ears, but he remained indifferent. The enemies surrounded him tightly, but he still remained indifferent. Ghostface Mask raised his right thumb and pointed at himself. Before he finished speaking, Ghostface Mask, who was surrounded, suddenly disappeared. Xiaohan Guang and Aogu Man's sneak attack had also touched Tang Tian's body, but the two of them groaned at the same time. They felt their hands go numb, and realized that there were fine ripples around the Ghostface Mask. But he never expected that Ghostface Mask would actually kill his way to his doorstep. There can only be one winner in this battle. This was what it meant to become a demon on the spot. Only with such a strong will could one become a demon. Fighting against the heavens, fighting against the earth, fighting against men, fighting against the entire world without fear, without cowardice and without wavering. Thinking back to the scene where the besiegers were dismembered by the fine ripples and turned into a rain of blood, the two of them shuddered. 3 list of powerhouses martial artists, adding close to 100 first-rate experts. With such a luxurious formation, Ghostface Mask definitely had no chance of turning the tables. Fu Jingji's figure had just disappeared when the growing Yin sword brought along a sky full of black chi that slashed down. The short sword in Fu Jingji's right hand thrusted out towards Ghostface Mask. The short sword's green light erupted, countless of green light threads surged out frantically from the sword's blade, and coiled towards Ghostface Mask. The only thing that worried Fu Jingji was that Ghostface Mask was avoiding him. So he wantonly created an imposing aura. On one hand it was a sure win situation and on the other hand, it was to force Ghostface Mask into the trap. Ghostface Mask, who was in the crowd, was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered in Fu Jingji's eyes, and it was time for him to enjoy victory. A scalp-numbing sound came out, and the black mist that converged into a slash aura flew out from the sword. Amidst the rumbling sound, the growing Yin sword slashed onto the dense green light threads. Sharpwind City trembled. A slash mark that was over 70 m long appeared on the ground. It was like an ugly and terrifying wound, appearing in front of everyone's eyes. "Only with my heart in the sky can I soar." Fu Jingji was shocked, but he quickly calmed down. If such a good situation can be turned around, then I might as well find a tofu to kill myself. Regardless of whether it was the discussions or the ridicule, none of them could move him. The Ghostface Mask that was covered with blood markings was extremely sinister and terrifying. His eyes seemed to have flames burning in them, and a deep voice came out from behind the mask. Gain the upper hand by a show of strength. Aogu Man was cunning and sinister, his strength was unfathomable, he had countless enemies but no one could do anything to him. He dominated a region, but for some reason he had quietly arrived. His eyes blurred and an afterimage appeared in front of him. Arrogant to the extreme. He was enraged that Ghost Face Mask had directly come knocking on his door. It was completely different from what he had planned. He had laid out the foundation and created an imposing aura, and planned to use the opportunity to push the Fu family to a higher level. The light aura in Tang Tian's eyes erupted. He had borrowed the momentum and the growing Yin sword in his hand. Although the sword was not as smooth as the blade, but at that moment Tang Tian did not notice it. He had never been so focused before. His willpower was so resolute. More and more people floated up. All of them were the heroes that Fu Jingji had invited. Although they were not martial artists on the list of powerhouses, but they were all famous people with profound strength. At that moment, the slash aura that had not lost its momentum pierced into the ground. Instant demon transformation. Instant demon transformation was the first technique that Tang Tian had learnt, but he had never unleashed such might before. Young man with just a bit of ability who knows where his tail has gone. Facing the light threads, Tang Tian was not afraid at all. A look of indignation flashed past Fu Jingji's face. He felt that he had firmly grasped the situation, but the other party was still so arrogant. He quickly calmed down and said coldly, "If you surrender, I will let you live." His body suddenly became a shadow and was pulled into the halo. He could see that the fine ripples were vibrations at an astonishing frequency. But vibrations were not high-level laws, so how could they have such power? The group of people that had pounced forward were all strong, but were destroyed in one move, which meant that Ghost Face Mask was much stronger than the rumors. That's me. The Fu family's treasure, Chief Green Swords. Not good. Fu Jingji's eyes turned cold and unknowingly, 2 wooden short swords appeared in his hands. The wooden swords had a bewitching dark green color, with light auras revolving around them, as though there was a regiment of mist surging inside. The crowd was enraged. Everyone rubbed their palms together, wanting to teach Ghost Face Mask a lesson. Fu Jingji dodged quickly, but the people behind him did not have the time. All of the experts revealed looks of despair, but they were all experienced fighters and knew that it was a life-and-death situation, and all of them used all of their strength and used all of their trump cards to protect their lives. Ghost Face Mask's speed was extremely fast. How could the 4 main cities agree to it? The other man was around 20 years old. He was extremely young, handsome and well-developed. He had a carefree bearing. He chuckled. "Are you Ghost Face Mask? Originally, you were going to walk your own path and I was going to walk my own path, but I never thought that you would steal my master's name to seek your own death. I have no choice." There were no problems with the arrangements, there were no problems with the plan, but all of the arrangements and plans could not avoid the core problem, and that was Ghost Face Mask's strength. Then come. Furthermore, how can I be kind? But to have ideas on me, he. How can a person who is satisfied with the title of Ancestor Li's inheritor have high ambitions? Truly seeking death. He had absolute confidence in succeeding because he had the support of the 4 main cities, and with the support of the Lu family, what could Ghost Face Mask do? There can only be one victor, and that is me and only me. His eyes lit up with a strange light aura. His entire aura underwent a huge change, and became as majestic and unshakable as a mountain. Borrowing the power from the light threads, the short sword in his left hand trembled, and a green halo suddenly appeared. He did not have any plans to speak. He had directly killed his way in and had no intention of being kind. The surrounding people were in an uproar. All of them were enraged by Ghost Face Mask's arrogance. It was dead silence. Fu Jingji's face was a mix of green and white. He was both furious and fearful. Only by throwing away all distracting thoughts and fighting and winning can everyone obtain the chance to survive. Suddenly, a green halo lit up around the 2 of them, and with a flash, Fu Jingji appeared behind them. He was in a sorry state. His clothes were in a mess, especially his right sleeve that was in tatters, revealing half of his arm. When Tang Tian saw him, his eyes congealed, although he did not recognize him, but he could sense that the aura being released from his body was not ordinary. Of course, he did not know that the man had a huge background. He was the 5th-ranked, a great infamous man, Aogu man who was infamous. Ghost Face Mask suddenly spoke, causing everyone to quiet down. Fu Jingji's eyes revealed a look of complacency. There was no need to mention Aogu man's strength. If not for the 4 main cities pushing him from the shadows, the Fu family would not have been able to invite Aogu man. Xiao Honguang was pleasantly surprised. He did not know where the young man came from, but his strength was tyrannical, and he was definitely able to enter the list of powerhouses. Ghost face mask's move had caused his heart to tense up, and it was the first time he had wavered in his plan. If you don't win, then die. Boom. Why don't you open your eyes and see what this place is? If he didn't win, he would die. Yes, that was it. The battle intent in Tang Tian's body burned uncontrollably. Not only did the surrounding crowd not make him feel any fear, but it made his fighting spirit even more ostentatious. There was no need to worry about friendly fire or where the enemy was. Even in death he would not waver. Only then could he become a demon. Although Xiaohan Guang had a smile on his face, his eyes were filled with killing intent. Although he had the title of Ancestor Li's inheritor, but Ghost Face Mask was more famous than him. The majority of people only knew of Ghost Face Mask and not Xiaohan Guang, and it was his battle to prove his name. Tang Tian seemed to have understood something. Only victory could save them. Witnessing the move, Aogu Man and Xiaohan Guang's faces changed. This man is so ferocious and cruel. If we do not destroy him today, how can the Sin domain have peace? Everything he saw was an enemy. All of the crazy bewitching green light threads instantly crumbled. Fu Jingji's face changed. The tyrannical slash caused him to feel suffocated. How can he unleash such a terrifying slash? Buzz. Chapter 769. But spirit treasures were only suitable for military generals. To the soldiers, star treasures were more useful and had a higher value for money ratio. Even in Heaven's Road, star treasures were unable to be produced. Heaven's Road did not lack spirits, but lacked energy, and was unable to allow spirits to grow into star treasures. Until today he actually succeeded in restoring a small piece of the Prairie Fire Ocean. No, it was the Prairie Fire Pool. Little Fool suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked, "Have the living spirits been formed?" Little Fool immediately appeared in the laboratory. Upon entering, his gaze was immediately attracted to the pool in the center of the laboratory. It was a square-shaped pool with a length and width of 10 m. The deep blue water resembled a small ocean and flames floated on the surface. Richard Jr. did not laugh. He knew how powerful the childlike spirit general in front of him was, and immediately replied, "Because the attributes of the living spirits are different, and the energy they require are different as well. The Sea of Energy has all sorts of energy and is the most suitable place to nurture them." Ling Su did not speak any nonsense. He picked up the wine bowl in front of him and downed it in one gulp. The Honorable Martial Continent's armies were too large, and despite the layers of attacks from Bing, the front lines were in a tight spot. The three of them went through a simple training. Crane's performance was the best. He was naturally intelligent and had dabbled in all sorts of miscellaneous knowledge, thus improving the fastest, and in a short period of time he was able to do well. Ling Su was not as intelligent as Crane, but he had a fierce and aggressive personality, and was able to display a decent fighting strength, and was naturally suited for long-distance harassment. Jing Hao was arranged to defend the Shang continent, while Crane and Ling Su would lead their troops to the front lines the next day. "We need more prairie fire pools." Little Fool's tone was extremely firm. "There are no problems with the required materials and funds. What do you want?" Ling Su did not say a word and just drank 3 bowls. Prairie fire pool. Richard Jr. could not help but become excited again. He thought bitterly. Ling Su and Crane said at the same time, feeling a fire burning in their chests. At the same time, they raised their heads and drank, the wine flowing down from the corner of their mouths. Even Crane, who valued etiquette the most, did not care about it. "Why do we need to nurture them in the Sea of Energy?" Little Fool asked, but even so his voice was still childish. His peaceful and leisurely life was broken after he submitted a report. Master Bing specially rushed back from the front lines and came to his laboratory, which was the first time Master Bing entered his laboratory. Master Bing described an ocean to him, a mystical ocean with flames floating above it. It was called the Prairie Fire Ocean, and the most mystical thing was that this ocean could produce spirits. Master Bing described the characteristics of the Prairie Fire Ocean in detail, and Richard Jr. immediately realized that the characteristics of the Prairie Fire Ocean were extremely similar to his own research. "You're leaving tomorrow." Jing Hao sighed. He raised the wine bowl in his hand and downed it in one gulp and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely protect the Shang continent." "No return without victory." The waiter pointed at the pond and asked, "What's it called?" Above the mountain peak the moonlight was like water. The sacred Saint Galaxy possessed an endless sea of energy, but was unable to produce a soul. The war outside did not affect his life at all. He was immersed in his own research. His life was extremely simple, researching and submitting a research report every once in a while. Richard Jr. Jing Hao's dim eyes lit up. He spoke solemnly. Crane is right, I was impulsive. I will punish myself with 3 bowls. If you want to take the Shang continent, you will have to step over my dead body. Humph, who knows where Crazy Tang ran off to? Ling Su suddenly spoke out, his killing intent soaring. If I catch him, humph, I will stab him to death with my spear. Little Fool looked at the spirit treasure in his hand and revealed a satisfied look. In such a large-scale war, a single person's strength could only be displayed to a pitiful extent, so he might as well take up the heavy responsibility of the equipment. Ling Su wiped the traces of alcohol at the corner of his mouth and said without a care, Don't worry, I will learn after fighting a few more battles. Looking at the brightly lit Sword Forest stronghold, the 3 of them sat side by side. Richard Jr., who was almost forgotten by everyone, had never given up on his hard work. He did not have any complaints. That's right, what was there to complain about? With so many spirit objects for him to research, he did not need to worry about funds, and he did not need to look at anyone's face. That was the life that he had been dreaming of. Crane shook his head. Brother Jing's task is not only not lighter than ours but even heavier. The Shang continent is our foundation. It is the path to heaven's road, the source of equipment and weapons. If we lose it, the front lines will have no meaning at all. The brightly lit Sword Forest stronghold was extremely busy. Little Fool suddenly sensed something. The light in his eyes expanded. Little Fool suddenly had a strong confidence towards the war. With the power to change the world in their hands, what else was there to fear? After all, they had spent so much money, they had to let them know of the progress of their research, although he felt that there was no need. Crane nodded his head. There are many famous generals in history who became famous halfway, and our individual strengths are stronger. Even if the situation is dangerous, escaping will not be a problem. Brother Jing, you do not need to worry. His laughter resonated out. He knew of the existence of the Prairie Fire Ocean, but it was naturally formed, and even Bing did not know how the Prairie Fire Ocean was formed. The Prairie Fire Pool would change everything. Jing Hao downed 3 bowls in a row. The one with the worst results was Jing Hao. He had focused on the sword since young, and never had any distractions in his mind. His temperament was just and gentle, his individual strength was the strongest, but he did not have any talent in the study of formations. It was hard to say how useful such a simple training of a military general would be, but the situation was critical and they could not care so much. The front lines were in imminent danger and every bit of strength was precious. The 3 of them did not have any complaints. They knew the disparity in strength between the 2 sides, and how much pressure Bing was under. Something must have happened. Jing Hao frowned but then relaxed. But Bing said that he is not dead and should be here soon. It's good that he is here, he definitely has a way. Hearing that, Ling Su was enraged. He stared at Crane. You want to fight? When Little Fool left the laboratory, he immediately classified it as a restricted area, and arranged for the strictest security. And with the fastest speed he passed the news to Bing. He could imagine when Bing received the news he would be wild with joy. Success. Success. We did it. Master Bing left in a hurry. The front lines were in a stalemate, while little Richard was immersed in the mystical Prairie Fire Ocean. Little Fool said, the more the better. Crane raised the wine bowl with both hands and greeted Jing Hao. He slowly drank it, then placed it down, his handsome face revealing a tinge of red. His eyes were as bright as the stars and said seriously, with Brother Jing guarding the rear, we will not have any worries. All of you must take note of your safety. If things are not going well, your lives are the most important. Jing Hao had a look of worry. All of you are not military generals, and after such simple training, you are going to the battlefield. After interacting for a long time, they knew Jing Hao's character very well. Jing Hao laughed out loud. He poured another cup for himself, raised it up and drank it in one gulp. How many prairie fire pools do we need? Little Richard did not let the happiness get to his head and asked cautiously. In the next moment he appeared outside of a laboratory, and even through the wall he could hear the cheers coming from inside. Jing Hao's tone was filled with loneliness and guilt, which the 2 of them could hear. His figure suddenly disappeared. Previously, Tang Tian had brought many star treasures, but following the expansion of the army, there were not enough star treasures to use. Thus, Little Fool combined a few spirit treasure refining techniques, and refined a large number of black gold weapons. It was under Little Fool's unremitting efforts that the Shang continent's black gold weapons might had increased by many times. With the increase in the standard of the equipment, the Southern Alliance strength had increased greatly. Jing Hao was extremely confident in Tang Tian, and firmly believed that as long as Tang Tian appeared, he would definitely have a way to get through this difficult situation. I was thinking too much, this is the last bowl for tonight. Jing Hao looked at the dazzling lights below, thinking about the journey. He felt extremely excited. He poured the wine for everyone and took the lead to raise the wine bowl and shouted, "Let's drink. We will not return without victory." Crane laughed. He could not help but think about the past and pretended to be serious. On this point I will support Brother Jing. Although Crazy Tang is unreliable most of the time, but he is able to accomplish seemingly impossible miracles. Don't you feel that the situation in front of us is prepared for him? A spirit treasure could increase a military general's strength greatly, and this point had long been proven by Zhou Xian and Xie Yuan. Since they could not compare in quantity, then they could make up for it in quality. If it is short, it will take a few days. If it is long, it might take a few hundred years. Little Richard laughed bitterly. They are like life forms, we cannot control their growth. The birth of the prairie fire pool would deeply affect the development of the war. In the report he had found the energy density required to produce spirits. Little Fool frowned. Nurturing them in the sea of energy would not only increase the difficulty of guarding, it would also increase the risk of being exposed. But he knew that Little Richard's words were the truth and asked, "How long will the nurturing process take?" "Humph. If that fool cannot personally witness this scene that will be recorded in history, he will definitely regret it to the point that his intestines will turn green." Ling Su was not good with words. He only raised the wine bowl in front of him and raised it towards Jing Hao, and without saying a word he drank it all. The wine flowed down his throat like fire. After putting down the wine bowl, the three of them looked at each other and laughed out loud. Little Richard looked at Little Fool and was extremely excited. "Master, we succeeded. We succeeded." Crane saw that he had successfully teased Ling Su and smiled with Jing Hao and drank it all. Bing did not explain in detail what effect the prairie fire pool had on the development of the Southern Cross Army. But Little Fool knew that the prairie fire pool that could produce spirits made it possible for them to produce star treasures, and that was an invention that could change the world. Yes. Little Richard recovered from his excitement and immediately said, "The first batch of living spirits had 12 of them. Now they have been sent to the Sea of Energy to be nurtured. They are still weak and require the Sea of Energy to absorb enough energy." Ling Su snorted in disdain. "You guys actually placed your hopes on this idiot naive." Little Richard's voice was filled with joy and sobs. "I truly envy you guys to be able to go to the front lines to fight." Jing Hao revealed a look of self-ridicule. "But a pity I am not smart enough and am unable to learn how to lead and fight." Chapter 770. A standard army consisted of 5,000 men, which also meant that adding all the enemies involved in the attack, they numbered 13,000 men. Furthermore, the direct subordinated armies under him were true elite armies, and were only inferior to the direct subordinated armies of the 5 generals. Just by relying on these 3,000 men, he had the confidence to destroy 2 of the standard armies. But what he did not expect was that not only were Cliff's third army unable to take down the position, they had instead lost half of their forces. This made Cliff furious. He had 5 of Cliff's standard armies under him, and he scolded the commander of the third army, and immediately ordered Cliff's second army to attack. The various armies of the Southern Alliance who had never experienced a large army before were unable to adapt. The defensive line that they had set up quickly became riddled with holes. Xie Yuan's swift army also felt the immense pressure. Xie Yuan was also prepared to retreat, because Bing's mission for them was to set up layers of defense, and there were still a few defensive lines behind them. Cliff did not look down on the enemy. In the short span of 3 days he had invested in 2 of Cliff's standard armies, and on the last day he had even mobilized his direct subordinated army that numbered over 3,000 men. "My soldiers have already lost the confidence to win." Cliff quickly made the judgment in his mind. To the guest army it was a dangerous signal. Until now, when they saw the enemies leaving like a tide and disappearing, the extremely taut nerves immediately relaxed. Although the southern region's trade was developed, but the Southern Alliance did not have an absolute advantage, and was not even the strongest powerhouse, and compared to the honorable Marshall continent, they were not even on the same level. Such an opponent is worthy of respect. He did not know that at the moment, countless people in the southern region were discussing about him and his army. They had to take the opportunity when the enemies were resting and reorganizing to leave. If they did not leave now, they would not have another chance. The next wave of enemies would only be more intense, and if they stayed, they would only die. 5,000 men. I actually completed my mission. How many people do they have? Cliff, who was expressionless, swept his gaze across everyone. He could see the slight relief in their shocked gazes. Cliff was the #1 general under Go Ching Wendao, and was famed for his bravery. He had a tall and sturdy figure, his hair was white, his eyes were gray like a corpse, his expression was forever cold and stern. He was an iron-faced man, and the army he was in had the strictest military discipline. None of the surrounding soldiers had the strength to stand. Everyone was lying in the mud like a pile of mud. Standing alone at the front of the formation, the white-haired Cliff suddenly saluted the swift army. Xie Yuan looked at the enemies retreating like the tide in front of the formation, and the breath that he had been holding back suddenly relaxed. Fatigue surged up like the tide, and his legs felt as heavy as lead. His body swayed, and finally he could not hold on any longer and fell on his butt in the mud. He couldn't believe it. He wanted to laugh out loud, but his throat felt like it was on fire and smoke, and he could only make soundless chuckles. It was said that he used to be ranked outside the top 100 in the southern region. How could such a guy stop him? Greedily breathing in the fresh air that still had some smoke, Xie Yuan felt that he didn't even have the strength to move a finger and fell asleep. Every soldier was equipped with a spirit object, and the strange long whip in Xie Yuan's hand was even more powerful than a spirit object. Compared to this army, his direct subordinate army was as simple and crude as a farmer. Retreat and rest for 3 days. Just by relying on their defensive line and equipment, they are able to withstand such a ferocious attack. Klee's men had attacked countless of cities and strongholds, and had many military achievements, but no one had ever done such a thing in front of him. Disregarding the spoils of war, Xie Yuan immediately ordered the army to take advantage of the rainy night to quickly retreat. It was truly a pile of mud. At the end, all of their weapons were either destroyed or destroyed. There was not a single piece of the formation that was intact. The enemy's attacks were extremely ferocious, and the entire formation had been plowed countless of times. The smoke gradually dispersed, and the blue sky appeared in Xie Yuan's vision, causing him to feel as though he was in a different world. The downpour had awoken all of the fallen soldiers from their slumber, and the entire formation had become a pile of mud. Everyone's eyes that had lost their focus regained a trace of life. He could vaguely see the aura of the legendary armies. There was no joy in victory. The entire swift army only had 3,000 odd men left. All of them were injured, and the rest were in the formation, never to wake up again. Everyone quietly moved the corpses of their comrades and buried them, removing the spirit objects to prevent them from falling into the enemy's hands. The defensive line that the Southern Alliance had set up was rather standard. It was like a sturdy net, but in the face of the oppressive power, it quickly crumbled. The collapse of the defensive line was an opportunity bestowed by the heavens to the famed generals. As long as they grabbed hold of it, it would be a crushing defeat. A crushing defeat was something that no famed general was willing to see. The morale of the soldiers would drop to the lowest point. They were sensitive and weak, like birds that were startled by the twang of a bough. As long as the wind blew the grass, they would panic and fall into a hysterical state. Xie Yuan, an unknown man, was actually able to block his attack. Their momentum was broken. Cliff's second army returned in defeat. Just as the armies at the front were preparing to expand their gains, an army was like a nail that was firmly nailed to the crucial point of the defensive line. If they did not pull out the nail, the pursuing army could be threatened at any time. Other than their comrades, there were even more enemy corpses. The number was so many that no one had the time to count. Over 20% of the 3,000 elites were injured, and what made Cliff feel the most helpless was that 3 days had already passed. Even if they were to pull out the swift army, they would not have a chance. Cliff's face was ashen, but the enemy's defensive line was as stable as a boulder. Seeing that every attack would leave behind a pile of corpses, even though he was known for his iron blood, he still felt pain in his heart. Xie Yuan, an unfamiliar name. It was a common occurrence for the defeated armies at the front to break through their own defensive line. The bewildered subordinates slowly retreated, but Cliff did not leave. His gray eyes stared at the battlefield in front of him from afar. He was awoken by the rain. Where did so many spirit objects come from? Cliff noticed the nail at the first moment, and immediately ordered Cliff's third army, which was the closest to them, to destroy the army. For a pursuit like this, every second was precious. Opportunities were fleeting. As long as the enemy was given the time to breathe and reorganize, the enemy would once again stabilize the situation. And tenacity, there were a few times when the enemy's defensive line was about to be broken, but they were forcefully stabilized by the enemy. But the enemy did not budge. They are too strong. He did not know how they lasted through the day. He gave his all and gambled everything. The rhythm of the battle was insane. The mission was completed, but he was unable to retreat. The enemy was advancing wave after wave like a tide. They did not give him the chance to retreat. They did not even have time to care about the spoils of war. Xianxia had some lingering fear in his heart. Luckily the rain came at the right time. If not, if the enemy were to sneak up, none of them would be able to escape. On the third day the enemy became even stronger and their casualties increased. Xianxia's eyes were bloodshot, and at that moment he did not have any thoughts of retreating, only killing and killing. You treat me like a statesman, I will repay you with my statesman. Cliff's order caused an uproar. Many of the soldiers revealed looks of disbelief. They stared blankly at the iron-blood and merciless Master Cliff. They were unable to imagine that such an order would actually come out from Master Cliff's mouth. I look forward to our next battle. After the second day ended, the swift army was completely numb. Finally, Xianxia became famous after one battle. Of course he knew how dangerous the order was and the disparity in strength between the two parties, but he did not hesitate. It is not suitable to attack. Cliff finally could not hold it in anymore. He led his direct subordinated army of 3,000 men and personally attacked. When he obtained the new moon phase swallow general whip, he secretly swore in his heart, which he had never forgotten. When Xianxia noticed that the entire defensive line had signs of collapsing, he made an unexpected decision. He did not give the order to retreat, but decided to retreat later and delay the enemy's advance. And morale. Everyone crawled up and quietly packed up their positions. Clenching his teeth, he chose to continue holding on. But an hour later he received an order to retreat. The order was simple: for him to hold on for another day. Xianxia did not know who was fighting with him. There were too many of them and their attacks were too ferocious. While retreating, Xianxia was surprised to realize that the battle had caused the swift army to be reborn. Not only did many of the soldiers break through in strength, but after experiencing the cruel battle, the entire army's temperament had become even more stable and experienced. He quickly threw the distracting thoughts to the back of his mind. He naturally did not need to worry about the matters of the higher-ups. I am just a military general, and obtaining victory on the battlefield is my only duty and mission. Under the shocked gazes of his subordinates, Cliff turned and without looking back he left with large strides. He had never looked down on any of his enemies, and furthermore, it was an enemy that caused him to suffer such a huge loss. He was extremely clear that the person in front of him was a true elite army. Cliff thought about the rumors that he had heard in the continent and his heart moved. Could it be? Cliff looked at the gloomy expressions on the faces of the soldiers around him, and knew that their morale had fallen to rock bottom. Xianxia knew that they were stuck, and if they were to retreat now they would definitely be wiped out. Ignoring the extravagant spirit objects, the strange tactics, the meticulously arranged defensive line, the swift army still had many things that attracted him. For example, their synchronization rate, the extremely terrifying synchronization rate that was definitely above 95%. Just this point alone was enough to make 99% of the armies in the Sacred Saint Galaxy blush with shame. The scene of the previous battle surfaced in his mind. The swift army's fighting style was extremely unique, but what truly left Cliff with the deepest impression was the army's extravagant equipment. Chapter 771. Without hesitation, the undying sword shattered the sword aura, and like a cannonball, it fiercely struck onto Ao Guman's bronze ring. The dragon serpent inside the bronze ring's light aura did not even have the time to whimper before the light aura crumbled, and countless of cracks appeared on the bronze ring. Ao Guman looked as though he was struck by lightning. Blood spurted out from the sky, and like a kite with its string cut he fell to the ground. Xie Ran was from a middle-grade family in Sharp Wind City, and had a close relationship with the Fu family, so even without Fu Jingji's words he came forward to help. Seeing Fu Jingji spitting out blood, his heart was overwhelmed with shock. A small bronze sword that was covered with cracks appeared in front of Ghostface Mask's weeping sword seal. How can I rest in peace? How can I rest in peace? In the dead silence of Sharp Wind City, everyone only felt their vision blur, and the 10 of them lost all signs of life. They lost control of their bodies and fell down like dumplings. Before Xiao Hanguang could even frown, his pupils constricted again. His exposed eyes were like red-hot iron, indifferently and mercilessly emitting a blazing heat. How is that possible? If there was a change in the top 10 of the list of powerhouses, it would definitely shake the entire Xin domain. What followed was the rise of many families and the fall of many families. Fu Jingji's reaction was very fast. He knew that everyone was stunned by Ghostface Mask slash, and knew that something was amiss. Tang Tian immediately sensed that Xiao Hanguang's hand seal looked similar to the one he had gained enlightenment on, but in terms of charm there was a huge difference. Who else? Come. The light auras that had their laws shattered were resplendent like fireworks, dazzling and gorgeous in the dark night. The top 10 of the list of powerhouses were godlike figures in the Xin domain. Every single one of them was a legend, and their experiences and stories only existed in legends. The list of powerhouses would change every few years, but the top 10 of the list of powerhouses had never wavered in the past 10 years. His palm was in pain, a blue light blossomed from his palm, that is. His pupils dilated. But so ugly. Xiaolon effortlessly pierced through the heads of the 10 of them, and in the blink of an eye, all of their foreheads had a bloody hole. Everyone only saw the blue light that was as fast as lightning. The laws that they had unleashed were like paper in front of this unremarkable blue light. Out of the 3 of them, Xiao Hanguang's expression was the strangest. He was shocked, surprised, and had a look of incomprehension. He stared at the Ghostface Mask for half a day. The mask was covered with blood veins that resembled a red spider web. It had a bewitching luster in the dark night. It was extremely eye-catching. How powerful was the Fu family's patriarch? Yet he wasn't the opponent's match. Let me show you my weeping sword seal. Before his expression could change, a bloody hole appeared on his forehead. How many of his consumptive consummate techniques could Ghostface Mask unleash? Undying. Xiaolon, who was covered in blood, became even more excited. Aogu Man and Xiao Hanguang had no other choice. Fu Jingji being ambushed and injured already caused their hearts to turn cold. If he allowed Ghostface Mask to kill Fu Jingji, then there was no need to fight and he could just escape. The power of that slash just now was so terrifying that everyone's hearts trembled. But if it was an ultimate move, then it would make sense. How could this be? Have a taste of my weeping sword seal. A dazzling sword aura flew out from his hand seals that were as fluid as flowing water. It was like a whimper, like a lady's sad song in the middle of the night. It entered everyone's hearts. Figures continued to fall and the sky looked like dumplings. Tang Tian did not care about it as Aogu Man and Xiao Hanguang joined hands to stop him. Is he truly Ancestor Li's inheritor? If an ordinary slash was able to cause 3 list of powerhouses martial artists to be in such a sorry state, then Ghostface Mask's strength was too terrifying. To everyone's understanding, only those in the top 10 of the list of powerhouses could reach such a level. In his eyes of disbelief, the undying sword transformed into a shadow and clashed with his sword aura. Fu Jingji only felt a cold intent behind him. His face changed. Not good. Everyone revealed looks of understanding. The fear in many of their eyes dissipated, and they once again became eager. They once again saw the hope of victory. Almost everyone had 1 or 2 trump cards, and these trump cards were either used to escape or to kill. But regardless of which technique it was, they all consumed a lot of energy. It was normal to exhaust half of one's strength, but exhausting all of it was not rare. He had trained in the Demon Six Seals for many years, and with one look he could tell that Ghostface Mask's right hand was actually forming the Weeping Sword Seal. Although Ghostface Mask's Weeping Sword Seal was the ugliest Weeping Sword Seal he had ever seen, and he looked at it with an indescribable discomfort, but he was 100% sure that it was the Weeping Sword Seal. It must definitely be his ultimate technique. Like an extremely fast sword slicing through the surface of water, behind Fu Jingji, countless of fine ripples suddenly spread out, and a ghostly figure could be faintly discernible inside the ripples. He suddenly sneered, "You do have some skills, but how many more of these ultimate techniques can you unleash?" Aogu Man's expression became serious. His eyes revealed hesitation and hesitation. He had seen all sorts of experts, but the man in front of him gave him the scent of danger. A thought of retreating surfaced in his mind. He had accepted the invitation to return a favor, but if he were to lose his life, it would not be worth it. In front of him, a small blue flower floated quietly in a place where he could touch it. Tang Tian's chest was surging with emotions. He hissed out and resonated with the low whimpering sword hiss. Weeping sword seal. Xiao Hanguang's seal formation attracted Tang Tian's interest. The Demon Six Seals was something that he had comprehended from the heavy demonic execution. Xiao Hanguang's seals were elegant and agile, causing people to be dazzled, and compared to his own seals, it was much more beautiful and handsome. Without knowing the life and death of our army, how can we rest in peace? In the stifling silence, under the fearful gazes of the entire Sharp Wind City, he slowly swept his gaze around. Xiao Hanguang's white and slender fingers released a jade-like luster, attracting everyone's gaze in the darkness. His 10 fingers moved like floating clouds and flowing water. His hand seals were constantly changing. It must be his ultimate technique. The roars of countless heroic spirits sounded out in his ears, and an unforgettable scene surfaced in Tang Tian's mind. The faces that were filled with cracks, the pairs of steel-like eyes, the figures that risked their lives to soar into the sky. Compared to the three of them, the other people's faces were completely filled with fear. Ghost-Face Mask's terrifying slash had not only left a deep scar on the ground, it had also taken away a few lives. He reacted quickly. The wooden sword in his left hand was placed behind him in a panic. This guy. The low whimpering sound that caused people's scalps to tremble instantly suppressed all other sounds, and the entire sky above Sharp Wind City became silent. Layers of extremely fine ripples spread out from the small bronze sword's body. In a short period of time, the initially crowded crowd was reduced by half, and it was sparse. That was why, unless it was a life-and-death situation, ordinary martial artists would definitely not use their ultimate technique. A powerful slash fiercely slashed onto the wooden sword. Fu Jingji only felt his palm heating up. He was almost unable to hold onto the wooden sword, but he knew that it was a life-and-death situation and forcefully held onto the sword hilt. He felt a sweetness in his throat. He spat out a mouthful of blood as though he was struck by a heavy hammer. He flew out. Xiao Hanguang's hand seals became even more agile and graceful, but Tang Tian shook his head inwardly. The weeping sword seal looked good, but in his eyes it was just for show. The sword aura shattered into fine auras. All of the peak martial artists were the true rulers of the Sin domain, and the true big shots of the Sin domain. They maintained a tacit understanding between each other, and even the subordinate families beneath them maintained a tacit understanding and restraint. Almost everyone believed in Fu Jingji's guess, including Aogu Man and Xiao Hanguang. They were all martial artists on the list of powerhouses, and understood the concept of being in the top 10, and understood how deep and unfathomable the terrifying strength of the big shots were. He didn't notice when this little blue flower had appeared. What is that? Is that the treasure of some unlucky person who died? A look of greed flashed past his eyes, and he extended his hand out to grab the blue flower. His mind that was initially muddled by his hot blood instantly became clear. All the so-called contributions, all the so-called fawning in front of killing were not worth mentioning. The backlash of failing to form the seals had actually caused him to lose control. A beautiful blue flower that was stained with blood flew out from the back of his head. Backlash. Fu Jingji looked at the figure in the sky that resembled a demon god, his heart overwhelmed with shock. What was that? The terrifying slash marks on the ground behind him in the darkness looked like cracks that led to another world containing endless dangers. The temperature of the night seemed to have suddenly become much colder, and his heart also became cold. Xiao Hanguang's face turned white, his hands that were forming seals became numb. A terrifying vibration extended out from his palms, causing the blood in his body to churn. Although Ghost-Face Mask was strong and had a few spectacular battles, he might be able to squeeze into the list of powerhouses, but that was all. It was different from Xiao Hanguang's Weeping Sword Seal. The undying sword's whimper was like the war song of an army in the smoke. It was gloomy and austere. Its voice resonated out in all directions. Suddenly Xie Fei Ran regained his senses. He was startled. What is that? Southern Cross Army advance. Tang Tian could tell with one look that the opponent was using the Weeping Sword seal. A bronze ring had appeared in Ao Gu Man's hands. The bronze ring blossomed with light aura. Inside the yellow light aura, a flood serpent image swam around. Tang Tian waved his hand, causing Xiao Lan and the undying sword to return to his side. Top 10 on the list of powerhouses? Xiao Hanguang's eyes constricted. That is. Weeping Sword Seal. That is. Woo woo woo. As though it could sense Tang Tian's state of mind, the sky full of howls caused the undying sword to vibrate even more intensely. The ripples around the sword body became even more concentrated. The low whimpers caused the entire Sharp Wind City to tremble. Ghost Face Mask's bewitching blood eyes finally revealed a slight change. The light aura erupted. It was unknown if it was absorbing life, but Xiao Lan became even more alluring. His right palm suddenly formed the Weeping Sword seal, which was different from Xiao Hanguang's nimble and ever-changing hand seals. Tang Tian's seal was as stable as a boulder. He did not move an inch, and the undying sword that was revolving around the demon palm in his body suddenly disappeared. The might of the bronze sword caused Xiao Hanguang's face to change. Just as everyone's fighting spirit was reignited, no one noticed that the position where Ghost Face Mask was previously at was empty. Xiao Hanguang looked at Tang Tian in disbelief. His long and slender fingers were trembling non-stop, blood trickling down the corner of his mouth. An ultimate technique is the most logical explanation. Haha, this joke is not funny at all. Chapter 772. The figure that was frantically escaping froze. He opened his mouth, but before he could even scream out, he lost control of his body and was flung out for a distance of 70 m. Everyone then saw that the figure on the ground was Ao Gu Man, but he no longer had any signs of life. His life was extinguished. That's right, Ghost Face Mask had disguised himself as the sweetest prey, attracting countless of hunters, and at the last moment the prey revealed his fangs. What a dense death aura. He was thrown to the side by Tang Tian, and had personally witnessed the entire process of the battle. But at that moment his mind was in chaos, filled with thoughts of Tang Tian's slash, the resolute slash, the slash that he had staked everything on. He was extremely moved. In his mind, Master Ghost Face Mask was already an extremely powerful person, and such a person should cherish his life and not take such a risk. Everyone's heart turned cold. No one dared to move. The blue light was like a mirage. The blue flower had unknowingly floated back to Tang Tian's side, as though it had become even more beautiful. But the scene in front of him made Tang Tian look at the Sin Domain's treasures for the first time. He suspected that Xian's final technique was inseparable from the Death Thumb Ring. The ultimate treasure of death laws. Sharp Wind City is willing to surrender. Fu Jingji's mind involuntarily had that thought, but very quickly he threw it to the back of his mind. Anyways, it's not me. What he needed to think about the most was how to protect himself. Ao Gu Man was killed while escaping. Other than proving how terrifying Ghost Face Mask was, it also told Fu Jingji that escaping was definitely not a good choice. As long as he could find this strand of life, Su Yi, who trained in life and death laws, could use the dense death aura to nourish the strand of life, allowing it to grow stronger. In front of Ghost Face Mask he was like an ant. If he had known that Ghost Face Mask was so powerful, Fu Jingji would definitely not dare to have any thoughts. But why is Ghost Face Mask's strength so different from the reports? Su Ye's pale white face was filled with shock. Wave after wave of death aura converged into a black wave, and like a wave, it continuously swept across the sky above Sharp Wind City. Ghost Face Mask was like a reef in the sky. He did not move an inch, allowing the black wave to strike him as though he did not feel anything. The pure death chi carried the aura of death. Apart from those who cultivated the law of death, normal humans would instinctively reject this kind of aura. Boundless fear occupied Fu Jingji's heart. He felt that he was extremely foolish and overestimating himself, to actually challenge such a terrifying man. Who could go against him? His face grew paler, but his eyes shone brighter and brighter. In the sky, Tang Tian's eyes suddenly lit up. Like Fu Jingji, Xiao Hanguang's face changed. He also thought about the death thumb ring. If it was someone else, they would have long since been turned into a corpse and devoured by the black flames. Fu Jingji suddenly understood. You must survive. Hong, a surging pillar of black flames soared into the sky, straight into the horizon. It was as if the door to hell had been opened in that position, and the surging death aura crazily poured out. The aura of death became denser and denser, and it rose rapidly. Compared to this old fellow, he was still too inexperienced. Xiao Hanguang sighed in his heart. He had no other way out and could only kneel down. Xiao Hanguang is willing to surrender. The change between life and death was profound and unfathomable. Other than Su Yi himself, no one else could save him. Fu Jingji had thought of countless of endings, but none of them were like the one in front of him. He had thought of countless of methods, but none of them could be used at the moment. Life and death were like shadows, like the two sides of a coin, always following each other and unable to exist alone. A blue light flashed in the sky. Tang Tian forcefully stopped himself from rushing forward to save Su Yi. He didn't even look at the captives who were prostrating themselves on the ground. Instead, he stared at the terrifying pillar of black flames. Lu Tianwen had died by Ghost Face Mask's hands, and there was no longer any leeway for reconciliation. There were many things that were wrong from the start, and there would be no room for adjustment, and it was either you die or I die. Even a powerful martial artist like Ao Guman was unable to withstand a single blow from Ghost Face Mask, and no one dared to resist. Fu Jingji stared blankly at Ghost Face Mask in the sky, his heart filled with despair. Countless of thoughts flashed past his mind. Fu Jingji's back was drenched in perspiration. He knew that his life and the Fu family's fate all depended on that one thought. But Master Ghost Face Mask had toppled his judgment. He did not understand why Master was able to unleash such a decisive slash. He felt an indescribable shame, but at the same time he gained some understanding. Tang Tian forcefully suppressed the impulse in his heart, and bit his lips tightly. The circular shockwave that was filled with dense death aura swept across the entire Sharp Wind City. The initially deathly silent Sharp Wind City had become so quiet that even the sound of a needle dropping could be heard. Everyone was dumbstruck. Their mouths were wide open as they watched the scene that resembled the end of the world. In the next moment, Fu Jingji made a decision, and in the silence he kneeled down. It is a hunt. That is. Tang Tian watched the black pillar of flames that shot into the sky. The surging death aura was so dense that it seemed to have materialized. His heart trembled. The terrifying scene in front of him reminded him of Xianxia, and the terrifying scene that led to hell. The death thumb ring? Tang Tian became anxious. Could it be that I gave the death thumb ring to Su Yi, and Su Yi was unable to suppress it and was devoured by it? Suddenly, a figure shot out from the ground like a wisp of smoke. He frantically flew out of the city. There was a dense death aura that was growing at an astonishing speed. The death thumb ring in his hand, the death aura was quietly spreading, and Su Ye's body was visibly deteriorating like a withering tree. The Lu family was in an unprecedented danger, and at such a time, any hesitation could possibly drag them into the abyss. Ghost Face Mask had deceived the entire Sin domain. His disguise was extremely successful, and when the hunters rushed over, they would become the prey like himself. He was not Ghost Face Mask's opponent. How is that possible? Su Yi trained in life and death laws, and if he was able to find a way to live in the endless death aura, he would have the chance to survive. In theory, the densest death aura would definitely contain the purest life force. It was as though under the most intense light, the deepest shadow would be cast. In the other direction of Sharp Wind City, in the crowd, stood an unremarkable old man, his face ashen, his eyes revealing a trace of fear. None of the people around him would have guessed that the person beside them was the famous Lu Xianxia, the true ruler of Galloping Horse City. Not only would he be unable to help Su Yi, but he would also harm him. Su Yi was previously heavily injured, and the life force in his body had been corroded. It was like a line of defense that was riddled with holes, and was unable to block the dense death aura. The two strongest people kneeled down, and the rest of the people no longer had any other thoughts. They all kneeled down and shouted, "We surrender." How can Ghost Face Mask be so powerful? Ghost Face Mask, who was in the sky, had an arrogant figure, as though a king had descended. He was slightly regretful. He never thought that the death thumb ring would be so powerful. Previously he did not have much feeling towards the Sin Domain's treasures. To him who was used to seeing star treasures and spirit treasures, other than the materials themselves, the Sin Domain's treasures did not have anything worthy of praise. Death was a law that caused people to fear. With such a dense death aura, without any defense, life force would be continuously destroyed. Death thumb ring. Tang Tian was about to rush over to take a look, but suddenly he stopped, his eyes constricted, his face was filled with shock. He finally understood how laughable he was. All of his plans and plots were all laughable. Xiaohan Guang stared blankly at Fu Jingji, who was kneeling on the ground, and scolded in his heart, "What a shameless old thing." Fu Jingji's reaction was so fast that it caught him unprepared, but he had to respect Fu Jingji's adaptability. Upon seeing that things were not going well, he was able to quickly make a decision, and still be so shameless. That was definitely a standard. But Tang Tian knew that Su Yi still had a sliver of life, a sliver that was close to zero. Because Su Yi trained in life and death laws, that was why he had that sliver of life. The blood in their faces slowly receded, despair and fear surfaced in their eyes. Is Sharp Wind City truly going to perish? Tang Tian's gaze swept across the entire place. His gaze was filled with a terrifying pressure, causing everyone to tremble in fear. Like a blue arrow, it instantly pierced through the figure. What a profound scheme. That position. Tang Tian quickly reacted, "It's Su Yi." Only Xiaohan Guang raised his head, his eyes flashed with a strange light. He could sense that the ghost face mask in the sky was enveloped by a tranquil and distant aura, and when the dense death aura clashed with it, it did not shake the aura at all. Disguise, that's right, it's a disguise. This top-notch martial artist had disguised himself as a weakling. And then he intentionally created a huge commotion, giving people the false impression that he was a weakling. In the Sin domain, people with strong reputations but weak strength were the sweetest prey. The people below became even more respectful. Suddenly, he exclaimed softly. He turned his head and looked out of the city. What do I do? The strength of the top 10 rankers on the list of powerhouses was enough to cause people to tremble. Adding his profound schemes, it was a terrifying thing. In front of the vast and boundless laws that existed since ancient times, humans were as insignificant as dust. If they did not have the courage, the willpower, and were afraid of the slightest thing, how would they be able to pry into the profound mysteries? But for some reason he did not feel much joy in his heart. He looked into the distance, into the endless distance. He secretly clenched his fists. The battle has just begun. Even if they trained in death laws, they were unable to completely remove the life force. They could only use special methods to suppress the life force, allowing the death aura to be even more prominent. Su Ye's body was completely occupied by the death aura. Fu Jingji, who was kneeling on the ground, was overwhelmed with shock. The dense and surging death aura made him think of a treasure. Like a statue, he stood there in a daze. Demon Six Seals. Ghost Face Mask cultivates the true Demon Six Seals. He looked at the ghost face mask, who resembled a war god in the sky, and without saying a word he disappeared into the crowd. Damn it! Their upper bodies were naked with bulging muscles, their breathing was long and continuous, and their speed was faster than a galloping horse. The queen did not have any overbearing aura. She spoke slowly and steadily, but every time she spoke, it made Shang Bei feel as though a blade had sliced through butter. All the problems were exposed in front of her. The king pagoda that was completely made out of gold had a length and width of 25 m. It was shaped like a pyramid with 108 flights of stairs. Every step of the stairs had carvings of birds and beasts, as well as the heroes of the savage continent. Ascending the stairs at the top of the king pagoda was a 10 m wide platform. There were no unnecessary decorations on the platform, only a single chair. Jia Shengwan secretly clenched her fists and encouraged herself. But the strategic significance of the Shang continent's passageway meant that it could not be abandoned. If only Xen is here, he is smart, maybe he can guess young Mrs. thoughts. He buried his head down, all of his hesitation had disappeared. He firmly believed that the queen was bestowed to the savage continent by the heavens. Her maturity that far exceeded her age, her sharp gaze, her calm judgment, all of it made him exclaim in surprise. Because only a colossal being had the qualifications to shake another colossal being, for example the honorable Martial continent. Only like that can I help Big Brother Tian. Shangguan Qianhui sat quietly on the high throne, her gaze sweeping across the crowd that was kneeling on the ground in the distance. She knew that it was another tribe that had submitted. Wherever her king pagoda went, the majority of the tribes would submit. Jie Shangguan saw the crux of the matter. The Shang continent had become a burden to the Southern Alliance. If they did not need to defend the Shang continent, then the vast southern region would be able to give Big Brother Tian enough space to maneuver and dodge. It's been hard on you. Jie Shangguan smiled. She took it and looked through it carefully. The savage continent had very little contact with the outside world. But luckily Jie Shangguan's power was not the same as before. She had secretly sent many experts to the southern region to gather information, especially the Southern Alliance. The young Mrs. Voice immediately roused Xiaoman's attention, and she immediately complied. Her gaze landed on the Wei Yi Guan continent. She carefully controlled the colossal being as though she was treading on thin ice. Jie Shangguan praised in her mind. The layers of defensive lines were meticulously arranged. They were both real and fake. She had already found a few places that could be traps. Such a defensive line would make the honorable Martial continent pay a huge price. No one cared about the name of the Perseus King Court as long as the king liked it. Those who did not submit were all defeated. Big Brother Tian was at a disadvantage. Jie Shangguan looked at the setting sun in a daze, her thoughts quietly spreading. Her sharp and calm eyes became gentle like water. He was a person who had seen many big scenes, but in front of the young girl he was completely suppressed by her aura, and there were a few times when his voice trembled. His Majesty asked very carefully. Some details that even he had overlooked were exposed in this kind of questioning. But they had made up their minds. In the future, the savage continent would only have one king court and only one king court, and that would be the Perseus King Court. They had yearned for the savage continent to unify for too long, and yearned to end the chaos and killings for too long. But she was the young lady who was hailed as the goddess of war. In a moment, Exen Taiji, Si Ming and the rest rushed over. Their expressions were solemn as though they knew that something big had happened. To the honorable Martial continent, it was the worst outcome. Shang Bei prostrated on the ground. He spoke of everything he knew while trembling with fear. When night fell, they started to set up camp. Xiaoman's voice broke her thoughts. The gentleness in her eyes disappeared, and she once again became sharp and calm. Her expression was normal and she said indifferently, "Bring him to see me." When she appeared out of nowhere and won every battle, she started to be viewed as the dawn of hope, as their hope. They worshipped her as their queen, and the savage continent's strong request created the current Perseus King Court, a rapidly expanding colossus. She quickly immersed herself in her work and became extremely focused. The bodyguards carrying the King Pagoda also carefully slowed down their speed. The gigantic King Pagoda looked like it was gliding on water without any tremors. The King Pagoda was the request of the two divisions. They saw the dawn of the savage continent's unification. When that thought popped out, it grew uncontrollably in their hearts and spread frantically. The light screen that the Perseus King crown released was as thin as a veil, enveloping the king throne, blocking the savage continent's blade like wind and snow. When the king crown was crowned, the body had to bear its weight. The savage continent was never a peaceful place. It was filled with battles and killings. The workload was so heavy that even Taiji, Si Ming and the rest could not bear to do it. In their eyes, although the king was brimming with talent, but she was still a young girl. Xiaoman stood by the side feeling weird. Is the young miss going to take action against Wuxia? But they were still very far away from the Wei Yi Guan continent, and to pay attention to Wuxia at this time, wouldn't it be too early? Jie Shangguan was also awoken from her work. The King Pagoda was quietly placed down, and the bodyguards guarded it vigilantly. She stood up and walked to the side of the King Pagoda. The setting sun illuminated the King Pagoda, and the young lady's figure in the golden light looked like a goddess. Wuxia is about to make his move. She suddenly spoke out, "Xiaoman, get the people below to find out more about the Wei Yi Guan continent and Wuxia's movements for the past few years. The more detailed the better." In the end he was convinced. No wonder everyone said that she will unify the savage continent. "Young miss, we found someone familiar with Wuxia. How can we help Big Brother Tian?" The citizens who were watching from afar all kneeled down. Chapter 774. Creak. The wooden door was pushed open and a delicate and handsome man slowly walked out. When he saw the shock on Xiaohan Guang and Fu Jingji's faces, he became even happier. He smiled and sat down. Master did not kill the two of them? Taiji and the rest could see it, but they did not believe that Mu Jixia, the head of the 5 honorable martial tigers, could not see it. No one has ever conquered the savage continent before. The honorable martial continent is unstoppable. The Perseus King Court is becoming stronger every day. Mu Jixia was the first to walk into the ice wind gap. My comrades are fighting. Tang Tian said, we need to support them. Mu Jixia will definitely take action and he will do it soon. He even felt that his own strength was not inferior to Tang Tian's. He opened the door with joy and confidence. Why do you want to kill them? Tang Tian shook his head. Tang Tian looked at Su Yi. You want to return to the sacred Saint Galaxy? But no one panicked. Ever since they started following Shangguan Qianhui, they had never lost a battle, one victory after another, and it gave them a strong confidence. At the last moment before his body was burned, he found a tiny chance of survival in the sea of death aura that was so dense that it almost seemed solid. Every single phenomenon was extremely minute, and if it was in the past he would not have been able to catch it. Furthermore, they were in the savage continent. Surrendering was a humiliating thing to do, and after surrendering, being asked why they were not killed made them feel even worse. If looks could kill, then Su Yi would have been killed countless of times. The swords in our hands have long been thirsty. Wei Yiguan continent. Su Yi saw Tang Tian's embarrassment and laughed, then stood up. Allying with other tribes? The possibility of that happening was extremely low, and Shangbei's Blackwater tribe was the best example. The savage continent was extremely xenophobic, and Mu Jixia had diluted the honorable martial continent's background for so many years, and only used trade to infiltrate, which had a good effect. But at such a sensitive time for him to choose to join the fray, it would incur the vigilance and disgust of the various large tribes. Tang Tian was flustered and did not know what to do. Although he was a tyrant, but it was rare for him to directly declare his position. The savage tribe that was used to fighting, how could they ignore the greedy beast behind Mu Jixia, the honorable martial continent? Can this subordinate ask why Master wants to return to the sacred Saint Galaxy? Fu Jingji asked carefully. This was the source of Taiji and the rest's confidence. In this land from ancient times till now they had never failed before. How many famous experts had tried to conquer this land, but without exception they had all fallen in this snowy land. No one doubted Qia Shangguan's judgment. Countless ironclad facts had already proven this point. In Taiji Si Ming and the rest's hearts, the honorable martial continent's ambition towards the savage continent was no secret. Su Yi stood up and bowed again. Please allow this subordinate to follow Master back to our homeland. Mu Jixia's weathered face was as hard as stone. He said these arrogant words calmly, but the soldiers in front of him did not feel their blood boil. They did not move at all like steel machines. Like Mu Jixia, their armors were full of scars and the swords in their hands were worn out and dim. For a top-notch general like Mu Jixia, after more than 20 years of painstaking effort, he definitely had enough trump cards in his hands. Advance. He stabilized his injuries and with his entire body covered in death chi and black flames, he started to go into closed-door training. The death thumb ring was truly a treasure of death. The death chi surged and flowed endlessly. But for Su Yi, who had gained enlightenment, the death chi was like the best nourishment and training material. No one in the Sin domain doesn't want to. Su Yi said, You are the strongest army in the honorable martial continent, and I am the strongest military general in the honorable martial continent. The more he knew, the stronger he became, and when he looked at Tang Tian he felt even more things and the more reverence he felt in his heart. All of these things were things that he did not have the ability to see in the past. For example, the space around the master had extremely minute distortions. For example, the closer one got to the master's region, the fewer law threads there were. For example, when the wind brushed past the master's body, it would scatter, but when it left the master's body, it would once again return to normal. I want to bring them back to the sacred Saint Galaxy. Tang Tian said. If not for Qia Shangguan descending from the sky, if not for the heroic spirit accompanying her, she would definitely not be accepted by the savage continent so easily. Her faith in the heroic spirit and the mystical method of descending from the sky made her a legend. Other than all of these, she was alone, and that was the most important point. The orderly footsteps were like an unstoppable flood. Wuxia, who was walking at the front, secretly nodded his head. The ice-wind gap's might was still terrifying, but it had reached the lowest he had ever recorded. The threat of the unified savage continent to the honorable martial continent was far greater than the southern region. Taiji, Ming and the rest were all heroes of their own regions, and would definitely be able to understand this point. The rise of the honorable martial continent was truly a history of expansion. Expansion and nibbling away was an instinct that was deeply hidden in their honorable martial bloodline. Although the wind power of the ice-wind gap had dropped to its lowest level, but the closer they got to the ice-wind gap, the wind power became even more terrifying. The white light of the formation undulated, but the soldiers inside the white light did not seem to notice it. Their expressions did not change at all as they walked towards the hole. Their imposing manner became one. The formation released a misty white light. The extremely cold air currents and wind blades entered the white light. Like clay oxen entering the sea, they disappeared. His heart was as pure as a newborn. That was Su Ye's first evaluation of Tang Tian after coming out of closed-door training. The Null Division is completely assembled, Tang Tian said firmly. Sharp Wind City in a wooden house. How do you feel? Tang Tian asked with concern. No one would see the honorable martial continent as the savage continent's hope. The powerful honorable martial continent was like a blazing sun. It would only melt the ice and snow of the savage continent. It would swallow the savage continent whole. In the future, there would no longer be a savage continent. There would only be the honorable martial continent, and their traditions would never return. The tribes that had lived on the land for generations, they would no longer be the owners of the land. That slash contained too many things: faith, perseverance, bravery, willpower. Fu Jingji's face immediately turned red. He forgot that he was a captive and roared, "That is death. No one who tries to break through will be able to survive." Fu Jingji and Xiao Hanguang were afraid of Su Ye's strength, adding that they had just surrendered, and were fearful of Tang Tian. They did not dare flare up. The Perseus King Court's momentum had already started to show, and Wuxia did not have much time left. The current Perseus King Court was still not strong enough, and he still had a chance to win. If Wuxia did not make a move, the longer it went, the smaller his chances of winning would be. When the last white light disappeared from the ice-wind tunnel, the crack canyon was once again filled with the whistling of the wind. Transforming the death chi into life force, his body was quickly recovering and strengthening. His understanding of life and death had reached a height that the ancestors of the Su family never had. Su Yi asked with a serious face, "When will Master head out?" "That's true. Master is not a person who kills indiscriminately." Su Yi nodded his head, then suddenly changed the topic. "What will Master do after gathering your subordinates? Have you thought of a place to go?" Truly perverse. This time the Death Ring's eruption of death chi was too sudden, without any warning. When he reacted, he was already surrounded by the death chi. The dense death chi had even transformed into black flames, and his body was disappearing. Just as he thought that he was going to be incinerated, Tang Tian's decisive slash suddenly appeared in his mind. When the two of them who were still immersed in Su Ye's transformation heard that, their faces immediately turned black. After coming out of closed-door cultivation, his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. If he were to meet Xian again, he had the confidence to kill Xian in a one-on-one situation. Wuxia would definitely not sit by and watch the savage continent unify, and neither would the honorable martial continent. This is unprecedented. Su Yi laughed. The death chi on his body had disappeared, and his temperament had undergone a huge change. The original Su Yi gave people the feeling that he was constantly changing, but now he was like a deep pool, calm and without any ripples, and even Tang Tian was unable to see through him. The most attractive thing was his eyes, which were as black as ink and as bright as stars. The ice-wind tunnel was like a monster's mouth, slowly swallowing the army into its stomach. He did not give up. He unsheathed the military sword at his waist, turned and took the lead, walking towards the crevice in the canyon. The army behind him also unsheathed their swords and advanced in an orderly fashion. Tang Tian was not angry. He looked at the excited Fu Jingji and said seriously, "I will go." She was seen as the hope to unify the vast and chaotic savage continent. She was like a ray of sunlight that pierced through the darkness. She would bring change to the savage continent. She could bring everyone together, but the savage continent was still everyone's savage continent. No one could guess what Mu Jixia would do, and neither could Jie Shangguan. Once Mu Jixia walked out of the Wei Yiguan continent, he would step onto the savage continent's soil. Su Yi maintained his smile. He was not angry. We do not need to conquer them, we only need to defeat them, or more accurately, we only need to defeat the Perseus King Court. We need to make the savage continent return to the past. We need to kill their unrealistic thoughts in the cradle. Destroy, we only need to destroy, completely destroy. Tang Tian blurted out. I thought the Sin Domain people had already lost their bravery. Everyone's discussion was on what method Mu Jixia would choose. Su Yi was moved, but when he saw the awkward smile on Tang Tian's face, he suddenly felt that it was good. He suddenly bowed to Tang Tian. Master's grace of giving me a new lease of life, this subordinate is unable to repay it. From today onwards, wherever Master's blade points, this subordinate will charge and kill. The army did not stop. All of their resolute faces did not have any emotions. The seemingly bottomless ice wind gap did not make them hesitate at all. He could capture it now, but there were many things that he was unable to explain. But he knew that behind all these small and complicated phenomena was an unfathomable power. He did not know how unfathomable it was, but it was obvious that it was much stronger than him. My guess was right. Everyone was startled. To them it was a name that had been around for a long time, and they were already unfamiliar with it. The Perseus King Court moved quickly and efficiently. But when he saw Tang Tian for the first time, the pride that came from his improvement was instantly washed away. It was as though a bucket of ice water had been poured over him, drenching him from head to toe, causing him to calm down. But Fu Jingji hesitated. He wanted to remind Tang Tian that no one had ever been able to return to the sacred Saint Galaxy from the Sin Domain, but seeing Tang Tian's determined face, he swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue. Mu Jixia looked at the soldiers in front of him, and the first sentence that he spoke attracted everyone's attention. We have stayed here for 20 years, and people have already forgotten how strong we are. The Wei Yiguan continent's snowstorm has covered up our blades, and they think that we are just businessmen. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.